tumult over that, and he was being asked to answer. He was then granted bail, and he was then released. Unfortunately, not really released then, because his documentation was not available.
He was partially released.
He was partially released. But it's interesting because now here we are looking at really muddied waters when cases of, charges of narcotics come about, and then we have a magistrate who's actually involved in the whole mess.
Well, it's of interest, this isn't in the headlines, but remember yesterday there was the issue of KNH employees kicking a huge ruckus about some pay
rise
yes,
or lack of it.
Well. The KNH and the unionists have actually signed a pay rise deal.
There we go.
And the contention, which primarily revolved around the house allowance, was in that agreement. So a back to work formula has been arrived at. So that's good news for the patients.
So the striking makes sense from the part of the people who strike.
One gets the impression that the employers in this country listen to strikes more than just simple quiet words.
Right.
Because if you look at the number of strike notices and the number of strikes that we witness in this country at the county level, at the national level, it's clear that somewhere along the line there's a breakdown in communication. And those who are aggrieved feel the only way these fellows will understand our grievances is if we give a strike notice.
Right.
Yes, and proceed with the
To
threat.
not come to work.
Yes.
There we go. Interesting, because we also see that 19 face fraud charges in 4.1 billion mall probe. Some 1.5 billion shillings of public funds is said to have been lost after officials inflated costs by over 50%. I mean, where do we stop? Where do we pull the curtain on this show, if ever?
50%.
It just seems like a long-running telenovela. At least 19 suspects were charged yesterday with conspiracy to defraud public funds in the reconstruction of the multi-billion shilling Lake Basin Development Authority Mall in Kisumu. We already saw issues where this particular fund, or rather authority, had some problems a few weeks ago. But now it seems that Bobasi MP Innocent Momanyi, Kisumu County Assembly Leader Onyango Olo, and LBDA Managing Director Peter Abok are some of those accused over irregular award of the contract to Edelman Properties after allegedly inflating the cost from 2.5 billion to 4.1 billion shillings.
Well, they all spent the night at Kilimani Police Station, and the gentleman behind Edelman is a gentleman by the name of John Zeyung Yang. He was also arrested sometime last week. So it looks like the DCI is busy.
Oh, yes, quite. So, and then this is the Speaker of the Kisumu County Assembly. He was at that point the chairman of the LVDA, right? So Kisumu right now does not have a speaker. Actually, I'd seen there was a conversation among the county assembly people saying, now we have to think of what to do if he's actually taken to court and if he answers to a charge.
We have a precedent. Nairobi hasn't had a speaker. This isn't something new.
The MCAs in Kisumu are saying, this is a man who has actually brought us together. He's managed to run this assembly so well. We don't have squabbles anymore in this assembly.
That isn't entirely true. Not really.
It depends on who you ask.
Yes, that is always the issue. Yes, it depends on who you ask. Yes.
And then we've got an article here I'm looking at. Police accused of torturing suspects in the 72 million ATM heist. Notice the word torture, which is crucial. It's an absolute right. It can't be suspended or restricted. So
notice accused.
Absolutely, yes. So the suspects were taken to Kenyatta National Hospital as requested by the Defense Council. We're waiting to see how that works out. Of course, we've got an police oversight body. So maybe that's something that will be taken to them. I mean, torture is a very strong accusation.
What constitutes torture?
Inhumane treatment, degrading treatment. Even terrorists cannot be tortured. That's why Obama had to move people to Guantanamo under that jurisdiction.
Terrorists cannot be tortured.
Nobody can be tortured. When I say an absolute right, it cannot be. It is non-negotiable. Whereas even right to life is not an absolute right. Under court, or if you're sentenced to death, then you don't have the right to life. It's restricted or suspended. Well, expelled in this case because it's the end. But right not to be tortured is an absolute right, and it's to basically maintain human dignity. Okay. Which is seen as more important than even being alive.
Okay.
So interesting there, the police being accused of torturing the suspects in that ATM heist. 72 million that was.
Okay, so you're saying therefore that if a country neglects its citizenry and lets them go hungry,
That can be classified as torture.
yes, exactly.
And I think it's actually something that, what would we call them, negotiators within, in quotes, use as a form of torture, denying food and drink to, suspects.
Yeah.
It's actually a form of torture that's actually quite widely used.
What's classified as torture? Is it physical, mental, emotional?
All
I think it goes
All
across the
of them?
board.
And then to what extent?
wide-based.
It's broad. Of course, under international law, you're going to have a legal definition, and it would have to do with it's human dignity, really, in bringing that down. So, under Article 1 of the United Nations Conventions, that's where it's called cruel torture and other cruel or inhumane and degrading treatment or punishment that is internationally agreed as torture. So it means any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or a third person information or a confession, punishing him for an act or a third person has committed. I mean, it goes on. But the main thing there is suffering, severe pain, physical or mental. So inflicting that. So it's an interesting one. It's a violation of human rights there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, then very many parents can be accused of violating the human rights of their children.
Quite.
All right, I want to jump in something. We had a lot of, hullabaloo when the government announced that they were going to give this cervical cancer vaccine free to, everyone within the girls at the age between 9 and 10 to give them this vaccine free. Now, it seems that experts have found loophole in the cervical cancer vaccine. Girls who suffer from bilharzia may not fully benefit from the soon-to-be rolled out cervical cancer vaccine, a new study has shown. From my understanding, bilharzia is it's a waterborne disease, kind of bacteria infection, and it's a common ailment in some parts of the country. And they may actually not get the maximum protection from the vaccine. The government plans to roll out the HPV vaccine to cover 800,000 10-year-old girls later this month. But they have observed a clear decline in HPV antibody levels during a chronic bilharzia infection, according to Dr. Lucy Ochola, who co-authored the study. The study, published on August 26th in the Journal of Plus Neglected Tropical Diseases, was carried out on 10 olive baboons at IPR. In baboons infected with bilharzia, the cervical cancer vaccine produced the lowest protection compared to uninfected animals of those who had been treated for bilharzia. I guess now that means that we need to look at the country and see, where are we finding cases of this? Is it a regular occurrence? Is it large enough for us to have a worry about? To then say, well, here's a loophole that they've been able to find, or does it seem like we've dug quite far to find something wrong with this particular vaccination, which I think is a good thing?
It is indeed. So I think today is International Day, World Health Organization's Day for Suicide, right? And depression in universities is rising fast is a headline. A recent WHO report named suicide among top 10 leading causes of death, and basically saying a research by UON shows that deaths are significantly more common among first-year university students. It's a rising statistic here. University students committing suicide for many reasons. Depression to be 35% among university students. More than a third of university students.
If you look at the condition in many of our public universities,
Yep.
it isn't difficult to understand. Because you get admitted, you apply for a HELB loan, it's usually not fast in coming through. You have to fend for yourself. You have to cook. You have to find accommodation. You have to go to school.
Deal with social pressures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All that as well.
All that lumped into one. And usually this is an experience that no one had prepared you for. So you actually do not know what to do, and you don't know where to turn. And many of our students come from backgrounds that are not well to do. So yes, it's like it's tailor-made for the depression that you speak of.
It's true. And globally, we're looking at every 40 seconds, one suicide occurs.
Every 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's an opportunity today, being World Suicide Day, for the government to revise their legislation on suicide. Of course, suicide is illegal in Kenya, whereby if you if you attempt suicide
And you fail.
And you fail, you end up in jail, which of course isn't the best course of action for somebody who's looking to kill themselves. Usually there's an underlying issue like depression and so on. So maybe time for the legislature to start revising that and looking into it, given the prevalence of suicide rates.
So say something like, instead of so if you're caught having attempted to commit suicide, you should be taken to see a therapist.
Absolutely, a
Something like that.
psychiatrist.
Yes.
You make it sound nice. Take it to Madare.
Well, yes.
Seek medical
Let's
attention.
not stigmatize Mathare. We're trying
Right.
to destigmatize mental health issues.
Something positive. Remember, the Jubilee government, in its campaign, said they're going to have an internship program. One of the internship programs was actually to place people in private companies and also in government. So they're starting with the government. 3,600 interns to be posted to ministries next month. The placements will last between 12 and 18 months, and those shortlisted will be attached to government ministries for a monthly stipend of 30,000 shillings. That's a salary. That's not a stipend.
Why don't we wait and see if it actually happens?
And if it will be sustainable.
And when
next
it
month.
happens, and yes, next month isn't far
not far,
to go.
right?
Yes, we can have this discussion when it has begun. They've rolled it out, and we wait for the end of the month to see if people actually get paid. Then we can have a
Then we
discussion.
This program targets holders of bachelor's degrees who should have graduated between 2015 and 2019. Graduates holding high academic qualifications and those already employed are not eligible for the positions.
Okay, fine. Good initiative.
Moving on to the counties. Investors warn Ruto allies against engaging in combative politics. I was bound to pick that up, no doubt.
Which investors are these in
so
the counties?
Tycoons say there's need for dialogue to solve pertinent issues instead of aggression. The sort of resolutions that we're taking as leaders or politicians, it's becoming combative, and of course this is creating an environment that is not conducive for business. So it's the business community trying to encourage, especially Ruto allies, because of their aggression, trying to encourage them to be more collaborative in their leadership
We are
approach.
saying that the Ruto faction is more aggressive.
It's
than
causing chaos. You know their style.
And the others are not.
investor?
Well, I mean, they have their politics is against government initiatives, so it's a threat not only to their business but also to their community.
They're in government.
You can be in government and still have factions in government, as we're seeing with Tanga Tanga. So if you're going against government issues, you're destabilizing the country and creating this perpetual electioneering mode, which we don't need. It's not good for business. And this is the business community. These are investors crying out to Ruto and his allies, please stop this antagonizing.
You have to ask this question. We've never seen a deputy president this powerful in the country. Why is this man so powerful? Or why is he made to appear to be so powerful?
It's this Katiba thing, I'm sure some people will say.
Because he clearly seems to be powerful. I mean,
This Katiba
when one
thing.
individual captures the minds of an entire nation, and in every discussion he features,
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. He features in every discussion. He's managed to manipulate the media and actually utilize and capitalize on the media. So he's in every story. He's in the newspaper every day. If somebody's accused of corruption, he throws himself there and said, why am I being targeted? He's very good with the media and his PR, and his communications is on point. I'll give him that. Of course, he's an astute politician, so he's been able to capitalize on this.
He's really been able to find if we're talking about picking on threads, even you look at the headline on the Star today, just in direct relation to that. We had this Ndindi Munyoro arrest that happened yesterday, and somehow it's about Ruto.
He pegs everything, doesn't he?
Literally.
Always pegging.
It's about him. They accuse the state of crucifying them for backing Ruto. Now, because we're backing Ruto, this is now why Ndindi was arrested.
We'll come back to looking at why do we always have some of these headlines? For example, why is that important?
Unnecessary column inches. Of
Right?
course,
Why
he's
is
got his
it
contacts in the
important,
media.
really,
no
all
doubt.
the time? So the CEO of Telkom Kenya, Mr. Mogo Kibati, has written a piece on the Standard today, And he's revisiting that issue. Remember, they were to merge with Airtel, and
Yes.
then Safaricom came and rained on their parade.
Is it? No. Wait.
Among others.
Wait. Was it not the Communication Authority, surely?
Yes, but also Safaricom.
Are they synonymous with
This
Safaricom?
is one.
No.
Is the CA 1&1.
Also, Safaricom came and weighed in on the issue and said, "You guys owe me, all right? Before you merge,
But if
also
they owe,
tell me.
They pay.
Tell me what you need to do." So he says that there remains a systemic risk in allowing one operator to hold a monopoly over service provision with an alternative network or for business, government and consumers to use if the lone operator were to cease operations or if service provision fails. So basically he's saying the ongoing discourse in Kenya's telecommunication industry is an opportunity for the country to consider maximization of the benefits of what should be a rapidly and organically growing ecosystem.
What has prevented Telcom and Airtel from actually growing? What is it?
My mother used to say, when they were ringing the bell for you to go to school, did I come to hold you down and say you shouldn't go? They rang the bell. Everybody heard. Why didn't you stand up and go? You can't blame the person who woke up and actually went and entered the gates of the school, because the bell pealed loud and clear for everyone to hear. So now you want to blame the people who went while you were sleeping?
I mean, when you have monopolies taking over, it starts to negate from sort of free trade elements, which is what we want in a
The
capitalist.
whole reason why we
and
have...
then they
we
have less incentives to cut costs, so
Yes.
they can charge much higher, which affects the consumer.
Competition authority
Less
exists for that
initiative.
reason.
Yeah, and the less initiative to be innovative and so on. So
What prevented Airtel and Telcom from being innovative?
From the very beginning.
no,
Yes.
they were getting there, but you know it negates from the ideals of capitalism.
It's not
We've
that they're
seen
also
it
not
with
innovative,
Microsoft.
really. Yeah.
We saw it with Microsoft. That was, I think, the global example, illustrative of what a monopoly
Antitrust.
can do, and it had to be broken up.
You know, this is one argument I find very interesting. So there's a hand-holding part of this whole process of capitalism, where someone doesn't play by the rules or tries to play by the rules and fails, and now they cry.
And then you go
foul.
pamper them.
Yes, and so that their hand can
You
be
need
held and led.
measures and controls. You
But the
can't
measures
have
and controls are
extreme-
there.
Even look at
Extreme capitalism, it negates from the very ideals of capitalism, where it removes competition. The consumers are no longer given choice. It can be very.
Look
I
at the
don't
two
say
big
dangerous.
mobile. Look at the two big mobile handset companies in the world. They're constantly chasing after each other. Innovation, one follows the other. One follows the other. One follows the other.
None has a
this.
monopoly.
None has a monopoly.
Yep,
Why? Because
yet.
one continues with their innovation. What global standards are these that are being set in that light?
Yeah, and monopolies can even gain political power. We have to be very
Not
careful.
gain. Monopolies have political power.
Absolutely. So
But
we have to
There
be
you
careful
go.
to put checks and balances
look at the
on
soft drink industry, Coca-Cola, Pepsi Cola, what have you. And in between, there are many other soft drink companies.
And then they can also pay their workers less. They can make them very powerful.
No.
If you look at people like McDonald's, they're paying their workers peanuts and making. Sorry, I'm now leaning towards your school of thought in terms of ensuring that employees are well paid. But you can have monopolies become tyrants if they're not controlled in terms of controlling the market, less choice for the consumer,
Where do you draw
high
the line?
prices.
Where do you draw the line? Where do you discourage enterprise and where do you encourage mediocrity? If
Yeah.
someone can't, is not up to the
monopolies
game,
lead
stop.
to mediocre services. There's less initiative to be innovative and to give the best services. So
You can't throw your hands up because somebody is doing extremely well. Then you say, "Oh, I can't meet up, so let me ask for help." You can't do that. Then why
You know,
enter into the market in the
go
first
into
place?
another business
Exactly,
altogether.
Go do something else.
You know, the other telcos don't actually complain about somebody being, that they were first in the market, all those other things. They actually talk about regulations and such, right? And I think you should just go and read what Mogo Kibati is writing about today. Then we can actually argue against what he's saying, right? Because there are many other factors. It's not the fact that, how did I become number one? Did I become number one just because I sold many phones?
Eric, it's not a question of reading.
It's not necessarily that.
We have the same paper in front of us and we've read it. The point is, why these issues, why are they pertinent now? Why were they not pertinent before?
They were pertinent.
Why did he bring them up before? Why is he bringing them up now?
No, they have been brought up before. This matter of monopoly and in the telco sector is not new, by the way.
Would the same argument
It's
be
over
held?
5
Would the
or
same
7
argument
years
be
old.
held if the other it was
The
if,
shoe was
if
on the other
on
foot?
the other foot? Would they say, "Oh well, we are enjoying a monopoly, so let's now make it fair for the other players
Of
in
course,
the market"?
if the
Come
shoe
on.
was on the other
But
foot,
Eric-
then the other foot would
Eric,
be
do you
complaining, and
remember
this particular
the-
shoe would be happy.
The Kenya
Every
Telecom
business.
had a monopoly, did it not?
Yes, it did.
And then legislation allowed Airtel or whatever it was called then, Kensel, Safaricom came into the market. Kenya Telecom was overtaken, completely overtaken by events. So, at what point was the whole process unfair?
And they at that time they actually put their hands up and they were very aware that they couldn't
They brought
keep
in
up.
Orange.
Yes, they couldn't keep up.
They brought. I mean, anyway.
The bell had rung, my friend.
When you were asleep, right? That's
When
what
you were
it is.
asleep.
Yes.
Others
By
went
the
to
way,
class.
something that may go unnoticed. The DCI and the Anti-Corruption Authority are at Kenya Ports Authority. Yeah, it appears some billions. A new unfolding scandal in our never-ending saga of scandals in Kenya.
They've gotten KPA. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we hoped at least this organization could, be the poster child for how it would work in the corporate sector.
Well, an organization that makes this amount of money would be attractive to the people who engage in these practices, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why they would write. So, in fact, one of the funny things that I saw in that story that they are investigating 2.5 billion shillings malpractice in a 3 billion shilling project.
Yes.
So, the Kisumu port was 3 billion shillings.
Yes.
So we are saying that 2.5 billion has been misused. In a 3 billion shilling.
Kenya for you.
So you
That's
actually
it.
needed 500 million. You only
we
really
will
needed
set
500
new standards. By the way, the issue of the Mao, Tobiko, the minister whose docket, the issue of the Mao fall under is to appear before members of parliament on this same issue. And he has accepted and said he's available. So at least
On Mao.
on the Mao issue.
Very good. Very good. This needs to happen.
Did we mention the chaos in Murang'a after Nyora's arrest?
Was there chaos in Murang'a? And what did the
youth
chaos
filled the
entail?
streets, they were burning tires and accusing
How
police of
many?
harassing their member of
How
parliament.
many?
Of course, these guys are hired and paid. Youth really don't have time for that in Murang'a.
How
They're
many
otherwise
people, right?
engaged in meaningful activities.
Like burning tires.
It's uncharacteristic for Murang'a folk, I think.
It was just.
I
the
don't want
night.
to stereotype.
It was
but,
not. It's not their day job. That's it.
but
Was
it is
happening at night.
uncharacteristic. Okay.
So the MP was actually transferred apparently from Murang'a, brought to Kamukunji overnight, where he spent the night. Now we talked about the police stations, CT earlier.
Yes.
Talked about if you're taken to Muthaiga, if you're taken to
Mudangari.
Gigiri, Mudangari, Kileleshwa, you're okay. You're taken. You're taken to Kamukunji.
They meet the palatial standard in terms of jail.
If you're taken to Kamukunji,
But what
It's a partial scholarship.
then you know where you belong.
If you're taken to industrial area, that's a full scholarship.
Oh wow, there we go.
What I find interesting is how these angry residents are calling for his release. They've blocked roads and lit fires. Gunshots could be heard in the night. Of course, police trying to chase them away. So here we are as a citizenry saying, get rid of corrupt leaders, or, we want, forget impunity, the rule of law. Nobody's above the
Chapter
law.
6.
Nobody's above the law. But the minute your so-called guy is arrested, you're there fighting for him and throwing, I was going to say hissy fits, but a bit more than that. You're burning tires. So
What
it's an
should they burn
interesting...
instead, Jerry?
I'm sure
Nothing.
if you went and asked any one of these individuals that was doing this and asked, why are you so upset? What is the reason why and they would probably say, they're against him because he's backing Ruto.
Yep.
Whereas the reason as to why this individual was arrested is miles away from any kind of sentiment that they have. Again, public knowledge and information of certain things that doesn't happen.
Assault. It's
Yeah, but that doesn't even feature in the dictionary of reasons as to why this could have possibly
and
happened.
that even doesn't feature in the
Well,
report.
we had
Yeah.
another Tanga MP say that he's been around when they were planning to go and attack Ndindi Nyoro, that it was a plan that had been hatched some time ago with Kabando, but Of course, that's might be speculation. Who
Is
knows?
this a sort of plan that was being hatched at Lamada?
At Lamada.
Is it
I
something
just don't know
similar?
what planning it takes to do what they did. I mean, it seemed a pretty wild, organic situation that just erupted simultaneously.
Did they also plan the words that they were going to put in Dingy's mouth when he spoke in church on Sunday? I mean, come on.
I don't think it's
Or
it needed
when he assaulted the police
surgical-
person?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Interesting one.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
A 3-year-old boy was killed as police dispersed a mob at a Chang'an den. So two police officers have been arrested over the death of a 3-year-old boy who was killed by a stray bullet in Kasarani, Nairobi. So IPOA has taken over investigations into the incident that occurred at a Chang'an den on Sunday evening. The officers are expected to take a plea. According to investigations, the boy was struck in the stomach by 3 bullets.
3.
3 bullets from an AK-47 rifle.
It's just terrible, isn't it?
It
That-
is terrible.
Tragic.
A 3-year-old boy is low, is close to the ground, right? Stray bullets at that level. It is a terrible thing.
And we
Terrible,
want,
terrible
and
thing.
we want to arm guards.
Terrible, terrible thing. Now let's wait and see how IPOA handles this, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Let's see actually how they handle this. The good thing about IPOA is because it's independent, and the same thing we were saying about doctors, it does not contain members of the police service, so they are able to look at it impartially, right? And we've seen cases that IPOA has actually presented to court for disciplinary as well, to the National Police Service Commission. We've seen them happen before. So let's wait and see how they do this one. Something happened internationally. Where is the Pope?
Malta, last I heard.
Mauritius, was it?
It was Malta, no?
Mauritius.
He's doing the tours around
Mauritius,
those islands, right? Tanya.
What is he doing?
Is
there?
he in Mauritania?
Mauritius.
Oh, yes.
Some country with an M. All right.
He gives hope to Mauritius who want UK to return islands. Oh, so he's waded into local regional politics.
And we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? About church leaders getting involved in politics and politics getting involved in the church. So there you have it on an international platform.
Well, this is okay, but he just didn't give the platform to a local politician to come and say, "Sisi tunataka."
But this is the
Na
clergy
sisi
or men of the cloth.
tunasema.
No, this is the clergy getting involved in governance or international relations and so on, which I was saying is becoming inevitable.
For
Given
world peace.
Okay.
Always happens. Always happens. So I think we come back and start looking at these headlines again that we've been seeing, Ndu. Some of the headlines that you look at and you wonder, so why do we still have the same headlines every day? It's Tanga Tanga, Kieleweke. If it's not that, it's Tuetu Ameshiko. If it's not that, it's, how two people met in Naivasha and how they became lovers from that point, and whether they're married or not. A lot of drama in the headlines, and whether that actually even makes sense to anybody. What value does it add? What kind of value do we get out of this? So that's what we'll be discussing when we come out of this commercial break and taking a look at the traffic. You are in the Situation Room. Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and C.T. Muga. It's 6:30.
Well, do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar, live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, so let's look at what the roads look like this morning. When we had a bit of a shower earlier on, Jogo Road is moving smoothly at this time. However, a little bit of a jam here and there, but it'll get you into town if you're on the road right now before traffic actually begins to build up. Ole Tok Road is very clear, according to one of you this morning. Ngong Road, up and cruising. Having a taste of the new tarmac road is wonderful. We hope that experience continues for as long as you can string it out. All right, Mombasa Road, people are moving slowly because the roads are wet due to the early rains. However, traffic is moving along quite smoothly. Waiaki Way, a bit of a jam. Everyone is expecting slow-moving traffic this morning because of the rains. It'll speed up as the roads begin to dry up, we hope. Right now, Langata Road is moving smoothly, as is Thika Road. Situation might change as the minutes tick by. Give us a call or send us a message, 0719-012-600. Let's see if we can keep you moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM Nairobi.
Facebook, Spice FM KE. Live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE. The conversation is also on Twitter, Spice FM KE, and also live streaming www.spicefm.co.ke. Our frequencies across the country: 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's and East Africa's biggest conversation. Eric Latif, C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, and Ndu Oko.
Well, we've been looking at the front pages of most of our papers over the last few weeks, and we've seen quite a number of things that have popped up. And the interesting thing is that they've popped up, but they've actually stayed longer than they should have, in my humble opinion. And we have situations where we're stringing stories out that categorically state do not matter. Do not matter against the benchmark of other things that are happening in this country that should take our attention, that should take our action, that should have our eyeballs fixed on them for either solutions or either a claim. Now, I'll give you a few examples. Just like what we're seeing this morning of Ndindi Nyoro having been arrested. Okay. Protesters in Muranga coming to the streets and burning tires. Okay. How does it affect the situation of things in this country? We see scandals of who married who and who loved who and did not love the other, also taking up front pages of our major dailies, day after day after day. And again, we ask the question, does this really matter in the scheme of things, of where this country is going, of its citizenry? Does it really matter? 2 months ago, there was a plot to assassinate the deputy president of this country, which turned out to be a total fallacy. However, it took, again, the attention of the country for weeks. And this is all we talked about, and who was involved and who was not involved. But we have several underlying issues taking place in this country that we are not paying attention to because we are wasting our time focusing on these things that really do not matter. I say we have a responsibility to talk about the things that are actually happening and how we can get solutions to those things that are problems, or even acclaim those that are happening which are good in terms of development for this country, in terms of inches that we have moved forward to take this country in a forward trajectory. We are wasting our time focusing on things that don't matter. We need to move forward.
Can I ask you a question? Are you suggesting that these headlines are contrived?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Straight and to the point.
Yes, we're stringing things along.
Made up stories.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are made up, or some of them you take a thread and you want to make an entire quilt out of it, and there really is no substance to it. Again, against the benchmark of things that are actually happening in this country that matter.
Are you saying that these headlines that we're speaking of, that there isn't a large enough population of people who actually like such headlines?
This
It's
is the
not
problem.
about liking. I think it's about the relevance in terms of our day-to-day lives. How does this affect us as Kenyans? Why is this important? Why are we being informed of this? Is that what you're on to?
Why are we being informed of this? And you know, unfortunately, we've gotten to a place where I think I dare say that the general population has been fed this kind of fodder has been presented over and over and over again, until, to me, it's now made people to believe that this is what they actually like. This is what actually they want to consume.
And more
this is what they want to
importantly-
hear.
So they've
And
been
that's not the
conditioned-
case. They've been conditioned
to believe that that's
to
what
believe
they
that that is what is important.
Exactly. To think that that's what is important, which is very scary when it comes to an electorate, because they overlook issues that are important when it comes to voting. Issues such as service provision, that is not discussed. Issues such as integrity maybe of the candidate, that is not discussed. So yes, the media does have the ability to frame political issues, and we see that happening all the time. And sometimes you wonder, is this a distraction? Is there something bigger going on? Is there theft or, some big schemes that we're supposed to be part of in terms of participation that we're not only not being informed of, but we're actually being distracted by, these headlines, especially, say, for instance, the Marianne and Linturi saga, the column inches that received. And I really tried to see, what's behind this. Is there a political agenda? Is there a game? And it really turns out that it was nothing. But you've put that on the forefront of people's mind. This becomes the discourse. We then ignore actual relevant issues that affect our day-to-day lives that are important. And then not just ignore it, but we start to think that this Linturi story is important. So the media does have a role to play as the fourth estate in overseeing the political process. So it's important it does this.
But then,
It's also
Jerry,
there-
who owns the media? Because the way you're putting it, like it's
the agenda setting is sort of sinister.
it's
and
sinister.
planned
That there's
and
something.
I think it's also
underhand that's
become so
happening here.
habitual that even the editors themselves have that bias.
Right, and really cannot see news for what it really is.
So
Because if
year
you
in,
look,
year out. Are
if
you
you
saying
look
that,
at- if you
are you
look
saying
at-
that journalists do not know?
no, it's not that they don't know. It's just that is not
they-
what is taking center stage in
Is
what
that
they
really
report.
They don't know
is-
what's
is
important?
Is that really not a question of what's important? What are the competing interests that the editors and journalists deal with?
Yes, on a daily basis, at a news desk.
This is the
and,
thing.
And among the first things that you do when you're running a private media house, how does it survive? It survives from
Through
making
advertising.
money,
Yes.
advertising.
Advertising.
Sure.
And if it's a newspaper, it's also distribution and sales.
However, backed
If you have a high distribution for your newspaper, then you are doing well. Then you can actually go and say, I'm reaching out to this number of people per day, and therefore you can come and advertise with me. And you're also deriving revenue from the distribution, the number of newspaper copies that you've sold in a day.
this is all well and good, but it doesn't
If
take away the
people-
fact
if
that
people do
the
not
media
want-
has the responsibility as the fourth estate to inform and to educate. That is the backbone of why they
It's
entered into this
true,
business.
But you
What
also
we've
have
done
a
is that we've
responsibility as a
commercial.
consumer to choose what you consume.
How do you
There's
choose?
choice.
It's like you go for a buffet. You go for a buffet and you assume that there will be 3 meats, 3 starches, 3 salads. However, you're given 1 meat, 1 salad, 1 starch. That's it. So here you're supposed to have variety, but you're given the same thing day in, day out. You have no choice but to consume that which is put in front of you.
No, you do have a choice.
Where are you
When it
supposed to
comes
get it? If your major dailies are
No,
only telling you about certain things
You
every
see,
day.
You don't have to pick up a newspaper. You actually can walk and
Then-
not pick up the newspaper.
Then why do you have this institution, which is known as the fourth arm of government, really? Why do you have this institution who is there to give you this information if you must still go and then look for it elsewhere? What is their use? What is their role?
See, their role is not necessarily to choose for you what you want. Actually, you follow
they
what
do.
you follow what the consumers
No,
want.
don't.
It's a mirror of society.
No, you're underestimating the power of the media to influence.
You're also underestimating the power of the people.
No.
No, in
So
this
what do you
case-
think
Understand
informs
what they
their
want.
values, their cognitions, their opinions? What do you think informs the people's opinions in the first instance?
What matters?
It's going
to
to be
them?
the media.
What matters to them?
They
at
are
the
told
local
what
level.
matters to them by the importance that the media places on these stories. This is the problem with agenda setting, because this is exactly what it is. It's the ability to influence the importance placed on issues. So if the public is seeing something being given, so many column inches every day, they start to believe it's important as an issue. This is the problem with agenda setting. And this is what the media has been doing. Why were we subjected to the Linturi Marianne story? Of what benefit is it to the public at large?
Did the media create that story?
No, it didn't. But
They
there's
amplified
many
it.
stories they can
Amplified
take
it.
and amplify.
So
There's
it's
a
okay.
lot of stories.
The seed was planted. They watered it and nurtured
Yes.
it and pruned it over
Yes,
and over
and we
and
watched
over
and
again.
we watched how you
To what
We
consume
end?
watched it unfold.
And
And
we
then
wa-
what
no,
happened?
we
How
watched-
did it affect us
we were
on a
watching how
national
you're
level?
consuming that, and because you're seeing how you're consuming it, it's like,
Okay,
all
let
right,
me
so
pose
this
the
is what people
question this
want.
way. Let me
Let's
pose the
give
question
people
this
what
way.
they want.
How did it affect the citizenry of this country
I
in a
don't know,
positive way?
you-
How
you
did
might-
How did
you-
it help?
you
Was
might
it
have
just
to-
entertainment?
You might have to do a study on that to find out exactly how
Was
it
it just
affects people.
entertainment? So what did
Because
you
see,
learn? Even when we had let's look at the situation where we had the
Are we
deep.
complaining that this story appeared in what you call mainline print media, as opposed to simply going where it should have gone in the
in
first
the
place?
tabloids.
the tabloids, yes, exactly.
Gutter
Is that
press,
what
as
we're
they call
complaining
it.
about?
Yes, I mean, look, I'm saying that we spend a lot of time focusing our attention on issues that do not affect us one way or the other.
Actually,
What issues should we be looking at?
You know, Jerry's saying something interesting. It's not that we're focusing. Jerry's saying we are being coerced into focusing on issues that do not matter.
Yeah, because they're
And then
put in
starting
our-
to believe they matter.
Yes,
that is
but
also the worrying
that's another
element.
problem.
That we
By
start
not
to think
one.
they're important issues. And then on top of that, it's exacerbated by the fact that we're then ignoring the important issues. So it's very dangerous for an electorate when they're making choices and they've been not just misinformed and misled, but uninformed. Is it really democracy? Is that really a choice? Which is what's happened in America, actually. What you find is the masses are otherwise distracted with, well, there it's sports and so on and edutainment as opposed to information. So when it comes to the ballot box, these people are not informed. They haven't been having the right discourse. Whereas if you compare that to, say, France just before the revolution and where they had their public spaces to discuss, the discussions were very controlled in terms of there had to be rationale, there had to be reason, it had to be governance related. Do you see what I mean? So that people are informed, whether it's to take over government, whether it's to vote for whatever reason, but people are informed. Instead here, the media comes out, we're very politically charged as a nation. It's high octane politics throughout.
and you want to dictate what's important to the people.
Well, the media is doing that.
No. You also want to.
No,
Even
the
characters.
media is doing that.
Yes.
Whatever the media is printing,
You see, the way
the
you're
people then absorb that and ingest that as gospel and then regard that as what is important as an issue. That is the problem with the
and
media.
according to you,
Now,
that's not
no, there are
important.
things that would be, it's not important because it doesn't affect
See,
our
you're
lives,
trying to
our
dictate
day-to-day
what should be
lives.
important.
No, let's be really
what
serious
is
here.
important to you? You want a roof over your head, you want security, you want
Exactly.
food, you want education.
Exactly.
Those are the important
Those are the
issues
important things
for the public.
that matter.
Absolutely. So it's
Right?
not me deciding they're important.
And they-
but
and-
the media places no importance on them by placing Linturi and Ketani in our papers. I think for 4 days we had headlines across the board.
Across the board.
Every paper was talking about this.
People are having those discussions in their private places. People are having those discussions in
Who
their
is
markets.
Who is informing their opinions of those
informing the
discussions?
conversation?
It's
Eric,
the
I think
media.
that
Their
really is the mode
minds.
of contention here. This ought to have been a private affair. Why were we being subjected to this charade? Why? Because if it's in the papers, you're going to see it. If you buy the papers, you're going to see it.
And
see
then
it
you will
today,
begin
see it
to talk
tomorrow,
about
the day
it.
after. Yes. So
And then
those are the hallmarks of conditioning. Something is repeated over and over and over and over again. Your brain responds in a certain way towards it.
And even the same thing happens
So
with
are you,
individuals.
are you also suggesting, CD, that there's some underhand deal that's going on? Not
I'm
one,
actually-
not two,
no,
not three, but
I think we need to be
all
clear.
the media houses.
I am actually not suggesting it. I'm stating it.
So
Suggested
who's
leaves room
controlling
for
this
rebuttals.
narrative then?
Your guess in this particular matter, Eric, is as good as mine
No,
because
I don't have any guess, actually. I'm asking who's controlling this narrative, because we're not
Look,
talking about one.
Well, we can see Ruto controls quite a few. He keeps popping up in every single paper for no reason.
And Raila was doing that
something
at the same
happens
time as
then
well, and we talked about
Raila
the
is a
same-
person of interest.
Oh,
In
really?
terms of
And Ruto isn't.
There's a statement.
he is making himself a personal statement, and there you have it. This is illustrative of how media.
You see, you have been
of
conditioned
the
to
question.
believe
No,
that Raila is a
hold on,
person of
hold on.
interest.
This is a prime
It's a
example
conditioning, I believe.
and a
Erika,
perfect
are you saying
illustration.
Raila is not a person of interest?
He's been
Raila is a person of interest.
She's been conditioned to believe
Raila
that
is a
I'm
person of
asking, are you
interest.
saying
Ruto
Raila
has
is
made
not a
himself
person
a person
of
of interest.
Raila is
It's
a
very
person of interest
different.
because of his national politic stature.
and
all
what
right?
begins-
And Ruto the same. He's the deputy president.
No, what
of the
begins?
country, for
No,
You
crying
don't
out
see
loud.
Uhuru
Opposition?
all over the papers. He is the president.
President.
He is.
You do not see him not day in day out. Yes,
every
not
day.
he does not get the same column inches
Every
that
day.
Ruto does.
Every day,
not
look.
the same column inches.
And it isn't accidental.
Yeah. Now, what this brings, what starts to emerge with this theory that Raila is a person of interest, Ruto has made himself a person of interest. The question of whether the media reflects sentiments or forces sentiments comes to the fore. So is the media reflecting society or shaping society?
So should
And
Raila be on the
here-
headline, or should the 2.6 million people who are facing starvation be on the headline? Should healthcare be on the headline? Should education, the new CBC curriculum, be on the headline? If you're saying Raila is a person of interest, CBCs then should be more of interest.
No, I think we were looking
It's
at
like
this from the
you're
point.
excusing one and complaining about the
No,
other.
no, we're looking at it from.
Actually, how do you compare the two exactly?
Who and who?
Apart from the fact that they're both politicians,
Who and who?
Raila and Ruto, how do you compare the two?
One is a deputy president, the other one is a handshake.
No,
No,
the
no,
other
no.
one is
Come on.
loved
You're
and followed by
simplifying.
almost 45-46% of the country as per the elections.
Yes.
And the other one.
That's very
and the
important
other
to
one
take
was
note of.
And the other
And
one was
still
voted
does not
for by
this-
the other person.
this
He wasn't
individual-
voted for, it was
this
Uhuru that
individual
was
who
voted
controls, or if we're going to look at it as control, who
We voted for a
holds
president.
45 to 46% of the entire nation, doesn't see the need to enter into, again, these column inches day in, day out. So we're not saying that we should put him in there. What we are saying is that we have other issues that we need to focus on. Every newspaper, every day, yet we have issues, just as you mentioned,
What should be-
interestingly enough.
What you are a communications person, do. What should be in the headlines today?
For
that
example,
isn't?
the paper where we have the issues that CT is going to bring up later today about how food prices have hit a 5-year high in this country. We know it because we go and we consume or we purchase this food. However, we're not asking the questions in terms of who then is responsible and how are we going to get ourselves or solve this problem. Those are the conversations that we should be having.
Why is it that we cannot feed ourselves with the same amount of money that we could a year ago?
A year ago.
Not
Why
forget the
why
five.
can we not do that? Why are we not discussing
So,
that? But you know what is going to happen? We're talking about these specific individuals
So that's not
day
in
in,
the
day
news.
out, and we're looking for.
It's in the news. Isn't
It's
it?
interesting to
Somewhere.
find out where it is, and that's also very important. It's also important. You're a journalist. Let's put it back to you. You're a journalist, so you understand that placement of these stories is actually very important, and it is something that is planned because they know where the interest lies because of the fact that people have been conditioned to think a certain way. They know this. You know this. And I know.
Listen,
So
listen,
what I'm saying is this. What happens then is that you condition people like this for months. By the time it gets to an election, they're not looking at what are the services that we can demand from future leaders. They're looking at this individual or this character and what is this individual or character going to do for me as an individual. We're not
I
looking
hear
at
you.
national
Do-
policies on a
for-
broad.
for-
We're
for-
not
for
looking
whatever,
at.
For whatever
we are-
you're saying,
let me finish.
Do not
Let
blame
me
a
finish.
news desk. Blame Jerry and her people.
Let
because
me
they're the ones who are
finish.
political.
We are not
They're
looking.
political people.
We are not looking at broad policies on a national level. We are not looking at how they affect communities. We're not looking at how they affect regions. We're not looking at things as important as education, for example. We're not looking at things as important as healthcare.
Eric.
When we have striking workers, we're not looking beyond, they went on strike and then they got their dues. We're not looking at the intrinsic issues of the healthcare system. We're not. We're
editorial
looking at
decisions.
individuals.
Let me
I'm
now-
talking
let me
about
give you
how a few
context.
people
Let me
burnt tires in
inform
Muranga. Who cares?
Point of information, and let me inform. Editorial decisions are not made by one person.
Clearly,
Editorial decisions
it's
are
an
not
entire-
actually made by the chairman of the board. They are not made by the CEO. They are made by editors.
I'm aware.
And editors sit and have a meeting. So when editors are sitting, for example, this morning, KTN News, Standard, our journalists, when they come in, they're going to have a meeting with their editors. And they're going to be discussing, so what is in the news? All right. What is in the news? Somebody will come and say, I'm following up a story about Galana Kulalu. I'll come up and following up a story on ABCD. Why? It's public interest. Why? It's big. Why? It's political. Why? It's all those factors come into play. And then when the journalists come back with the stories, you look at them and see, so of these stories, which one gets more public mileage? We could be discussing all these issues, but then which one actually takes bigger public precedence than the other?
In order
If
to
you
sell the
look at it
paper.
and say, all right, so Raila is a public figure, so let's put Raila here because what Raila has said has impact on the nation. If Raila says the BBI is going to come and amend our constitution so that we can create a position of prime minister, that becomes a national conversation, right? And we go with that. If the other one says, the deputy president comes and says, as the deputy president says, I do not actually think that we should amend the constitution at this point, that also gets a position, right? And also, and we've seen it before, we've seen newspapers actually setting headlines and setting agenda and saying, for example, the recent stories about Nairobi River and the pollution of Nairobi River. We've seen the recent story that was also done by KTN and the Standard about children, young children and orphan children, and how these orphan children are being taken care of. It's a big story on KTN News. It runs for many minutes. It runs longer than a Raila story, than a Ruto story, than a Tangatanga Kieleweke story. So this does happen. So about conditioning and all,
It doesn't
unless you're saying...
It doesn't, I want to correct you there. I don't like people building on false premises, as you know. It doesn't run longer than the Tangatanga stories. You'll have a one-off story, a human interest story,
That's
that's socially based, and that's it. There's no follow-up and nothing like that.
The others is daily.
And as you talk about editors, educated as they are, I'd like to think they're not immune to the biases of the environment they themselves create.
Of course, they
don't
live
do
with you
things
in the society.
Absolutely. So, even the journalists themselves will have a bias towards these politically charged or high-octane or scandalous, sensationalist stories. But let's not forget the capacity of the media to lobby. So let's say, for instance, they ran with a story about healthcare. The government has been put to task. If that story ran long enough, questions were being asked, and the government realized this is becoming the dominant discourse, people are viewing this as something of high importance, you'll find the government then acts on it. So it's an opportunity.
Have you seen the changes in water and sanitation out of a story that was aired a couple of weeks ago?
So you're reinforcing my point.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It happens.
It happens. So this is what I'm saying is the role of the media. It's not for you to say, you've sat there and said, but this is what the public want. The public don't know what they want. We are giving it to them and then they decide that's what they want.
Sorry.
The public do not know what they want.
No, that is
the
not
public do not know what they want. And
No.
I'm actually an advocate for the fact that not everybody, it shouldn't be a one man, one vote. Not for people who are uneducated, not for people who are ill-informed, misinformed, and don't know what they're voting for.
Why don't we
Not
just
for
throw
people who
women
are
into the mix as well? While we're at it.
Well, actually, it's not far-fetched a theory.
And disabled people.
No. I didn't go into that. It's not that far-fetched a theory, and this is Aristotle actually thought this, that voting should be weighted. Some people should actually have more weight in terms of voting because they understand the consequences, the economy, and so on. So, for instance, let's take Brexit.
George Orwell saw it as well.
Let's move
and he
away.
wrote a book, fictitious book.
Let's move away from Kenya so that it's not sensitive an issue. Let's look at Brexit. A lot of people who voted to leave the European Union, they're not fully informed.
Know the
Why?
consequences of
They don't know
their
the
action.
consequences. And then you have somebody who is 100 years old voting. The consequences of Brexit are not going to be felt for the next until
So if
5,
I'm
10
on my
years.
deathbed, I don't have the right to vote.
But are you understanding the
It's
process of what you're
debatable.
entering
So if
into?
I'm
Why-
on my
why should you
deathbed,
vote? It's
I
not
don't
going to affect
understand
you.
what's going to happen next.
If you're going to die tomorrow, why should you have a right to vote? It's not going to affect you.
I was alive, remember, and I'm still alive.
You're
Well,
not going to experience.
and you're
You're not going to
bequeathing- you're
experience the
bequeathing your-
benefits
your
or not.
Yes, that's my legacy.
I'm
I
being
voted.
legacy.
facetious to drive a point home, but yes, we really must think about weighted voting. It's an important concept. It will stop all this populist rising and fascist
back to
parties
your
rising.
point. You're saying that the public does not know.
The public is not informed. They don't know what's good for
No,
them. They
she's
don't know what
saying
is
the public is
important. They
ignorant,
start.
and I'm
they,
telling her
they,
there
they
is
start.
no such thing.
The
I
public
agree
is
with
as
you,
informed
Suchi.
as the papers will inform them. It forms their opinions,
Not
their
every
values.
person reads the papers.
Not everybody.
Talk about media.
Where
Not
are they
papers,
getting their
media.
information from?
Radio.
In terms, where are they getting the information? Well, radio is media,
But
and
that's
we
what
have
I
the
said.
ability
I
to
said-
shape the
I said
discourse as
media,
well.
not newspapers.
Right.
Yes.
These are the things that we should be looking. We talk about elections all the time, and we look at now what it will be as a result of what happens when somebody goes and puts their vote. Or somebody goes and stands before the ballot box and makes that decision of who they're going to put into power. All of this that's informing the reasons why this person is being put into power, I'm sorry, just does not cut it. If we are looking at policies, if we are looking at the shape up of policies, CT's favorite word of mine, if we're looking at a framework within which we can now plug in, if we're looking at what we can now plug in and say, this is what we should hold leaders up against, that information is not being shared. When we talked about advocacy, when we talked about things, civic education, who then do you think is one of the custodians of civic education in this country, if not the media? If not the media as the fourth estate, to inform, to educate,
I agree.
This
And
this
this
is
happens.
what this happens,
And,
but it's
and then Jerry will come in like she was telling us yesterday. This is how it is.
when does it happen
This is how-
enough?
you know, she
When
tells
does it
us
happen
this
enough
is-
for us to
this
feel
is-
an impact?
This is how Kenya
the
is.
way we feel an impact
Stop
about
living in
things like
utopia.
this.
And here she is today, taking us into a utopia where
Listen, no.
No, this
I
is-
have
no,
I have
no.
many. I'm able to hold two contradictory thoughts in my head, Eric. I'm an intelligent human being, so I can think philosophically, I can think theoretically and utopian, and talk about certain theories. But also, I can talk about what's actually on the ground, which is the fact that we do vote in tribal blocks.
All right.
Not that
So-
this is my wish.
So what's on
Jerry,
the
let
ground?
me-
What's
let-
on the ground is that people are
Jerry, let me
politically charged,
understand
and you
you
said
here.
that.
People have been charged. What's creating that charge? People have been charged. The media charges people here. Everything is high octane.
Let me give you an example so that you can understand. For example, if you look at the
You see, you're
the
taking
front
you're
page,
taking the view that Eric doesn't understand. But anyway, go on.
so that you can understand the point even a little bit further. All right.
Educate me.
Oh, let me educate you.
Educates.
MPs accuse state of crucifying them for backing Ruto. Okay? Now, what would happen in a case where you have individuals who are already politically charged and, for example, maybe support the DP Ruto?
They will buy the
They will
newspaper.
definitely buy this story, and they will buy,
Because they
not
like
just buy
it.
the newspaper, they will buy into this particular narrative that the state now is against Ruto, and we will do all that we can to make sure that he gets into office. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, it applies directly to the psyche that has already been born from this political charge that we are talking about.
You know what is interesting, and why it is clear this is contrived. You see, they present this story as though Ruto is not the deputy president, as though he's some opposition leader
Hanging
who's
somewhere in the
constantly fighting the
backwoods.
government, and the government is fighting back.
You shouldn't have to tell people that you're powerful all the time. It's either we buy it or we don't.
Actually, if you're talking about conditioning, this is it.
The media reports what's happening.
No,
No.
the media manipulates
The media
information
reports.
to suit
You don't
its
create
purposes.
stories. The media reports. Secret plot to force teachers into polls. Is that a creation of the media? No,
Look,
it hasn't. After
Eric.
the contested oust of Wilson Sossion, two top NAT officials are now fighting for their jobs as TSC declares that they should have retired. Has the media made TSC declare teachers
Why is it a
as
plot?
retired?
Why is it a plot?
Secret plot to force teachers into
Yes,
polls.
but why is it a plot?
Read the plot.
Look,
read
people-
the story. Because
Eric, I've
because
read
we are
the
intelligent
story.
and we can unravel.
Eric, I've read.
And you can see this is clearly
I've
a plot.
read the story.
And you even said it yourself. There's
Eric,
a plot.
we had a headline here: depression in universities rising fast. Okay, depression in universities.
Yes.
Now, the moment the depression is attached to universities, what you've done, you've made the story inanimate. If you headlined it with students suffer great depression at the university, the focus would be on the student. It gives it a humane face.
Then we begin to ask why and
Why
what
are
can
students?
be done.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So,
The intro to that story starts with, "Dear Mom and Dad, I am sorry I had to do this. I love you guys so much, but I can't take it any longer. Life has become unbearable. I cannot live like this anymore." That's the intro. Powerful intro. The structure of writing a story, CT. Powerful intro.
You-
And
you-
it tells
you are
who
aware that I
is.
also write, Eric.
Yes. And I
so,
want
so
you-
why
I
are you
want
giving
to-
me this lesson in writing?
I want you to also understand the same thing. Understand, educate you. This is it. Just because they didn't say a student there doesn't mean that the story is wrong.
Eric, there was look. You're introducing a concept I
And
didn't
it
even
says
talk
there,
about.
research by UON shows death significantly more common among first-year students. That's the story. How many
Eric,
columns
you know,
does it
we
get?
were talking
5
about
columns.
headlines and the impact that these things
Yeah.
have, and the power of the media to determine the headlines and the story.
And you're talking about a story that has made its way into the papers once. I think when I started
once.
this, hold on. I think when I started
Not
this, I
once.
talked about the frequency with which we see this kind of thing.
Yes.
If we're going to even give an example of this whole Linturi garbage that happened,
It's 7
how
o'clock,
many
dude. Let me-
days,
let-
time
let's-
and time and time again.
Let's cross over into 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock now when we're having this conversation. 0719-012-600. What do you think are the headlines that you're consuming, the headlines that you shouldn't be consuming? Do you think you've been conditioned, as Njeri Andu and CT are saying this morning, into consuming the kind of information that you're consuming off the media? Well, this is the Situation Room, Kenya and East Africa's biggest conversation. It continues. It's 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life.
All right, let's look at the
Traffic.
situation on the roads. Things are, well, as we get around to 7 o'clock or just past 7 o'clock, we know that we have issues on Mombasa Road because more and more people have joined the roads. Same thing that we have on Wayaki Way with traffic really, really building up. People are talking about issues on Thika Road because of the footbridges that have not been completed, and people are dashing across the highway, causing accidents, then which cause more traffic. Traffic is light on Langata Road getting to the Timor roundabout. We don't have much of an issue there, but again, likely to build up some more as we continue through the morning. Anything significant that we should hear about apart from the normal happenings of traffic, do give us a call, 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
3
day.
minutes after 7 o'clock. Good morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya and East Africa's biggest conversation. Well, it's that time again that we come in and say 0719 012 600. That 0719 012 600 is our conversation line. This conversation is also happening on Facebook, Spice FM KE, where we're live streaming, and also we're live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. Let me give you again our frequencies across the country: 97.6 in Malindi, 90.9 in Nyeri, 96.7 Eldoret, 96.0 Nakuru, 102.5 Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. The media is conditioning people to consume what they're consuming. The media is setting the wrong agenda for the country. The media is...
I don't think, I think you brought in the issue. It's not setting the wrong agenda. It's setting an agenda that is not beneficial in the long run for this country.
And benefit is defined by...
Well, you can peg it against what it is that we need as individuals in this country, or as communities, or as blocks. What does this? But if you don't even look at the basic social unit of society, which is the human, and then now you go to a unit like the family, and then you now go to community, society, etc., etc. Look at what their needs are. Look at what it is that they should be thinking about when it comes to who they're going to put in power. We're talking about some run-of-the-mill stories here where, look, I'm telling you, for example, if you went into Muranga yesterday and actually counted the number of tires that were burnt, or this hullabaloo that was created because Ndindi Nyoro was arrested, again, I ask, does it really matter?
Where did you consume that? Did you consume that off social media, or did you consume that on mainstream media?
It's in the papers.
How many?
It's in the papers.
Which headlines? Apart from
It's
that
not
one.
in the headlines.
Apart from that
in the
one in the
papers.
It's not in
which-
the headlines, but it's in the paper.
Well,
This is
what-
what I'm saying.
there are
And then
many
again,
other
now,
stories in the
okay,
papers.
yes, continue, but it's on the headline. This
course
is what
the-
you see, and that is what grabs your attention. Who doesn't know that headlines sell?
Yeah,
And they're specifically put there in order to sell. Headlines are what sells, and what you put there is what is going to sell the newspaper.
sensationalism.
Yeah.
Also, it's important to note that the media is very cognizant of the fact that they make a lot of money from government advertising. So they have to be very careful as to what they report, which of course is a conflict in terms of their role as the fourth estate and watching over the political process. So you'll find they don't want to report on certain issues where the government can be seen as having to failed in their provision of, say, social services or whatever it is that is being reported as an issue of national interest. So that's also something else to take into account, that the media is conflicted when it comes to reporting on certain issues.
I keep telling you, I have sat on a news desk, and those are not things that are discussed in a news.
Oh,
meeting.
believe you me, it's
All right?
it's
No,
an
I cannot
unspoken
believe
convention.
you.
It's underlining.
I cannot
Similarly,
believe you. I have
similarly,
been
the
in
media
this-
will
I
not
have
report
been-
on certain
Jerry,
corporates. We cannot sit
20
here. We
years-
have been told.
20 years I have been in the newsroom
Okay,
and I have not
I will
seen
tell you
that. I cannot
categorically,
believe
nations
you, something that you
suffered a
tell me.
major blow when, because of their constant criticism of government held back on advertising.
You
It
see?
suffered a major
And
blow.
what have you said?
Now, no.
What have you said? That that nation was not influenced at all by the government. That's exactly
It
what I'm
doesn't
saying.
have to be the government influencing you. It can be members, individuals within government. I'm not saying it's just the government who sets the agenda. There's a number of different people
She
who
was
can
giving
set
the
the agenda.
example of
I was giving an
government.
example. And similarly, they're also handcuffed to corporates. They cannot accuse or interrogate corporates in the manner that they should as people who are overseers for us citizenry, because they're scared of losing the advertising revenue. So these are things we need to look at and maybe suggest an independent media. So something that doesn't have advertising and something that the government the government maybe subsidizes
No,
or our
but,
taxes pay into.
Eric, you know this
For instance,
to
the
be true.
BBC.
Eric, you know this to be true. In a talk show which emulated this one that we have at some point within the Nation Media Group, someone made a joke, a light joke about Kenya Power and Darkness because of the constant power cuts. Not the following week, the following day, Kenya Power withdrew.
They're advertising.
Yes. So one has to step gingerly on these matters.
But you see, the point I'm making is, and the point I want to inform you, because I need to inform you. I'm the one who's been there.
When you say you've been there as a
those
journalist,
things-
hold it. I need to be
Yes.
informed. Yes.
Yes.
I don't think that's a premise.
In the
to-
news decision-making cycle, those considerations do not crop up.
They don't crop up at your
Those
level. At a higher
considerations do
level,
not-
they did.
Well, at a higher level,
Sorry to say, at a higher level, I am telling you, they did.
At a higher level, they may do, but at a
Eric,
higher level,
Eric,
that's not
Eric,
quite the
Eric,
story.
Eric can only speak about the level he knows. Eric, please tell us what you're saying.
At a higher level, they may do, and Jerry has not sat in that higher level, so she
Says
doesn't
who?
know.
How do you know?
I know.
How do you know? What
All
do you
right.
mean you know? You
All right,
know
so
my
tell-
background. You
so-
know that I haven't been in the media.
Yes, tell
you
me.
know that I don't understand these
Have you-
issues.
have
No,
you
no,
been-
no,
I'm
no,
making
no.
sense.
Have you
It
been
is-
CEO of the Media
course
House?
you're making sense.
Have you been
but
CEO?
I
You
always
are
make
chairman.
sense, and I'm always right.
Now,
Moving
you
on.
are doing the very thing that we have been trying to demonize here. You are sensationalizing knowledge that is privy to people who worked in the media. Okay? And the truth of the matter is this. These are human beings and they will make human decisions. People will be biased, people will be influenced. That's just the truth. And when you have a situation where the headline says one thing or the news says one thing, the reality on the ground says something different, you have to ask the question, what on earth is happening here?
Because of what we see.
Yes, you have to ask the question.
Yeah, because of what we see day in, day out. And again, it plays a large part in then the decisions that we make in the future. We're looking in the future as concerns this country and what is actually good for the general population of this country. And the decisions that they make must be informed. We must come from a premise of when we are putting people into leadership, we know what it is that they're able to deliver based on what is happening in this country. If we do not know repetitively what is happening in this country, the good versus the bad, versus where we can ask solutions for, versus what developments are being made, if we do not know this, if we are not informed, then we are making poor decisions.
This is not just a radio show. This is a conversation. And for that reason, I want to open up the phone lines so we can have a conversation with you. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Is the media today is just, punching bag for everybody who thinks that things are not going right? So, it's because of the media. This thing happened even when Moi was in power. Remember? Everything, it hasn't rained, Moi must go. It has not, Moi must go. Everything that is happening is just because we're blaming it on. In fact, one time Zé said, "You guys, surely you're blaming me for everything."
No, I never blamed the media
Because
for
there
things
was
that
El
are going
Nino-
wrong.
there was
no,
El
no.
Nino and
I
there was
think
La
I need to
Nina.
correct that. I have not blamed the media for what is going wrong. I have said that we need to do more from an informatory point of view to make sure that the people are getting the whole picture. And again, note, I didn't say that politics or sharing of that information is wrong or bad.
You don't know
I
where
have
the-
said
where the problem
that we need
arises.
to make it clear that the other things that are happening in this country that influence the way we think and influence the decisions that we make. It is important to share that information regularly.
You see, we have naysayers among us here who believe that the public is too dense to understand these simple things. And I've been of the contrary view.
No, you've oversimplified my thinking. Governance is a complex concept. There's a lot
According
of
to
complex
whom?
issues. You try and explain the legislative process to somebody who has only reached standard 8, the passing
You
of
can.
bills
How
and so
many
on.
people have
It
only
can be-
reached
But
standard
it is
8?
never explained. This is what the newspapers should be doing, but they don't. Instead, people are consumed with reading about Linturi and Marianne in Naivasha, doing whatever it is they were, hanky-panky, whatever it is they were doing. Also, I think it's important to note at this point that the government, or rather we do have some reprieve from this agenda-setting media in terms of technology. I think Twitter has created a platform where now we have other information sources and, agendas are not as set as they have been previously. And then what's happening in turn with Twitter being so popular is the media, mainstream media, the papers, the radio and TV, they are picking up sentiments off Twitter. So it is becoming a little bit more reflective of what the public is thinking and talking about. So as opposed to setting the agenda, it's actually reflecting views. And those views, of course, would be on issues and things that people are affected by. So we're now getting a comeback with Twitter.
Let me open up the phone line 0719-012-600. Good morning, Kilan from Kisumu.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. My name is Kilan from Kisumu. I'm beginning to realize that the media has completely been paralyzed and actually compromised in so many ways. One, I look at real issues like affecting me directly. Like, for example, I'm a taxpayer, and if I'm a taxpayer, everything should be accountable to me. And I'm realizing that Linturi issue is coming in. There's some funny things are coming in, but streamlined information that should be giving directions to the approach on how to settle up matters in Kenya are not being addressed.
Not being
Like,
shared.
for example, yes.
Yeah.
So you agree with our sentiments?
Yeah, I'm looking at things very, 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 very critically because I look at sometimes how media reports on major issues. Like, for example, we know what happened to the dam. 20 billion, 18 billion, 60 billion is not a walk in the park. That's just an ordinary story. We look at the international media and every other thing. When something happens like this, perhaps in the US or in the UK, people resign. We see a wave of offices being vacated and new faces coming in. Look at what is happening in the British right now. Brexit. We know what is happening. We know that I'm so informed about what is happening in the British Parliament when I see when the British Prime Minister is at heat right now, and everything else is shaking him because the promises he made he cannot fulfill right now.
Kilan,
media, yes.
Kilan, you're saying you know about the dams.
Yeah, I know about the dam.
You know about prosecutions.
I know about prosecution.
Where did you learn that from?
Let me just give you another example here. I'm just giving examples so that you can base your talks on this.
Okay, please carry on.
Money has been lost. Yes, money has been lost in the dam about 20 billion plus. Yeah, and many more scandals have come by in that regard. We last week we were seeing a collaboration or a conspiracy to steal from the ATM machines, which was an operation that was carried out by some intelligent thieves in Kenya who went away with 72 million. Everybody else knows about this, and how the police and intelligence have closed into recovering this. I mean, this guy is telling us that they don't have the capacity of handling billions and could only handle a few million. This is common knowledge on the streets right now. I really want to engage gainfully with people who are really going to give right information. But I'm not going to engage. Actually, people don't love reading newspapers because newspapers are doing a choral song that everybody else knows. Linturi is doing this and.
Linturi is doing Marianne and so and so.
Yeah.
People are talking about those are what I call coffee shop talk.
Yep.
When you're meeting a new girlfriend and you're starting it from like, how do you find Linturi and blah blah blah. Those are coffee shop talk.
Yes, and it's splashed across the paper where people are dying of hunger.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a very pertinent point that you made there, Eric, and in this conversation. You asked him, do you know about the dams? And he said yes. Does he know about the prosecutions? And he said yes. But what people don't feel is the importance of this, because it wasn't given enough column inches. Yes. Absolutely. So not only is media shaping what we're talking about, but it's also giving us an impression of what is important and what is not.
This was headline.
Some of us are
news
more
for
discerning.
weeks.
No, that's you. Some of us, you've been in the media, maybe you understand how it works. Some of us are more discerning than others. If you ask the layman, the dam issue, Linturi issue is bigger than the dam issue.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Kilan, thank you very much for calling this morning, and thank you for joining the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kilan.
We are picking calls this morning, 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. What do you think about what Ndu is raising? What exactly are you saying, Ndu? Apart from just bashing the media, just...
But that isn't media bashing.
It's not media bashing. It's telling the truth and it's stating fact. We're spending too much time. We're
From where I
creating
sit,
too
you're
much
just bashing.
space for issues that do not affect us as a country.
If someone repeatedly points to something which seems to be a little off, is that bashing?
It's not bashing. It's bashing. It's stating truth, but you will be upset because
Good
clearly
morning.
you've been called out.
This is Spice FM. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, Latif.
Hi, how are you, sir? What's your name?
I'm fine, thank you. My name is Collins. I'm a journalist.
Where are you calling from, Collins?
I'm calling from Mombasa. I've even worked with you at a radio station in Mombasa.
Collins, yes.
This is inside dealing.
Completely. Now, please help me inform my co-hosts here.
You're assuming that you know what he's going to say.
No, in fact, I'm going to support Thorn.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm a journalist.
That is informing.
At times, I'm not happy with what we are doing.
Thank you.
We are not helping this country. We are driving this country a very bad position. I'm sorry to say so. I was sharing this.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry, my dear. It's the fact.
Especially if you're correcting Eric, do not be
Yes,
sorry.
do not be sorry.
Yes, please carry on.
My name is Ndu and I endorse this message.
Collins, I'll tell you like Trump.
Thank you.
If you don't like it, just get out.
How do we, I'm asking Latif, how do we as national TV stations go and air a divorce case live on air? Where are our where are we? We follow we follow divorce case more than things that are happening in the society.
Collins, it wasn't even a divorce case. That's the interesting thing. It was a lovers' quarrel.
Let us talk about the Turkana oil.
It was covered live, right? Go ahead.
Yes, it was covered live.
For how long?
Some of these issues, for how long? Yes, and we are told it's 200,000 barrels that were shipped out. Do you know the real amount was 240,000 barrels? Has anyone asked that? I work with I work with an international media now, but my story is different from what was carried around.
Have you asked that story in your media house?
Yes, I've
So
had
there
that
you
story.
go. So
If I
journalists are
give you a
doing their
link-
job.
But you see, these are main stations that really need to set agenda
In the
There are so
country.
many things that happen. Yes,
Yes,
there
in
are
the
so many
country.
things that are happening on the ground. There are so many projects. If media houses can maybe even look at to follow what is happening with the Kenyan news agencies, the stories that are written from Mashinani, those are stories that we should read, we should see, we should follow, we should critique. It's okay to report on corruption. It's very much okay. Why do we base on politics until we forget? Even the Constitution, it ended up Baba alitusomea Constitution. Now tunaambiwa BBI. We just vote
Like
for
in
BBI.
Nigeria
No one
here,
is telling us. No one is telling us what's truly there. Even the BBI themselves haven't given us a report so that we can critique now, compare it with Punguza Mzigo, who have really laid down what they want or what they are proposing.
So, but Collins,
Thank you. Yes.
Collins. So you've said that all those issues that you've raised, as a journalist, you've covered them, right?
Yes, I've done it on my
That's it.
small way.
Are
I
you
do
telling
it
me
on my social media.
has your media house ever stopped any of those stories that you're talking about?
No.
I think he
Then
was
there
clear.
you
I think he
go.
was clear which media house he works for. He said he works for an international
Even when
media
he
house.
was working for the local media house.
He said very
Collins.
clearly that when he was working for the local media house, he was not satisfied with the status quo. He was not satisfied with the agenda and how it was pushed forward.
I'm gonna bash you,
whereby
Collins.
there
Just
were other
just because
issues.
you didn't pull your
Whereby
weight.
there were other issues that could have been covered. He was not able to cover them because of the agenda that was already set by the same editors that you told us are the ones who set the agenda
Is
of
that
what will be covered.
Collins, is that what you're saying?
Collins, is that not what you said? You felt
Yes,
that you
yes,
had-
that's what I'm saying.
Thank
Latif,
you.
let me
You said
let me
it
ask,
was clear.
Latif. We have newspapers. There are some countries, like in China, where newspapers have very little of politics. Do they still sell newspapers?
I don't know.
They
Tell
sell
me, do they?
Yes, they sell newspapers.
All right.
But what we do, we write too much politics saying we are looking for sales. But if this country, we decide today, all the newspaper, we are going to look for projects, and people will buy newspapers.
We've got
They will still
specialist.
read
We've
these
got
newspapers.
specialist newspapers in this country, right? You know that. We've got a business newspaper. We've got a weekly business
But
newspaper.
how many are they? How many are they?
Start
Latif?
yours, Collins. Start yours.
There's the solution.
Yes, thank you.
The
Thank you for that
long-winded-
challenge.
Thank you very much, Collins.
Thank you.
Speaking of-
0719-012-600 is the line we're opening up for the conversation this morning. This is a situation room. Would like to hear what you think, Jerry.
I was saying, speaking of solutions, I think one solution would be perhaps to create an independent media house that is actually funded by the taxpayer, that has no advertising, that whether corporate or government, and that way they're indebted to the public at large if it's taxpayers' money. So something similar to the BBC where there's a license that is paid, although, of course, there's still scope for distortion from external forces, so to speak. But it would give us some way and would make some way in terms of getting a media house that actually informs the citizenry and acts as the fourth estate, because it would be completely independent and it would be answerable to the general public. So you would have...
So in other words, you're saying we start a government propaganda machine.
No, absolutely not. I think we have
Because
those.
the next thing you're going to say is
We
that,
have
you
those.
know, we've
I'm
got
talking
we've got
about an independent...
a state broadcaster or a state media house.
an
And this state media house
independent...
is
No,
being used by
not
the
even
state.
owned by the state. It's owned by the people because it's taxpayers' money. It's us. So
State is people.
would create a structure. It's a lot more complex. I'm just making the initial suggestion. It's discourse we can have and hash it out as to how to do it. But in the first instance, just discuss the idea of having taxpayers' money pay for a media house or a platform whereby we can have critical, rational discourse without it being interfered with by government or corporates, so that we're free to discuss.
It's interesting to note that we actually have groups outside the country who are willing to put their funding behind organizations who would come up and actually report on news, on development information that's going on in a country because they see that there's a vacuum. I cannot name their names, but they're actually there, willing to put their money behind groups who will come out
What is
and
stopping them?
write. We are saying that national newspapers.
No. What's
we-
stopping those organizations from actually setting up what you're saying?
Well, I don't know what's stopping them. I can't
There
tell
you
you
go.
what is stopping them. But I'm saying that here we are. This is the point that I'm trying to make. It takes somebody from outside to come and say, hey, guys, there's so much happening within your country. Let's give you some money to be able to get it done in terms of spreading that supposed information, instead of just focusing on some other journalism garbage that really doesn't make sense. All the time, day in, day out. And again, I ask the question, what exactly do we benefit from hearing that one day the DP was there was a plot to supposedly assassinate him, and then the story took a different turn the next day, and then the next day it took a different turn, only for us to find out at the end of the day that it was a fake story?
No,
How
actually
did it
Not
help
yet.
us?
I don't
No, the
actually do.
investigation is still ongoing. Can I just let me pick this call
Yes.
from Nancy? Nancy, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining the Situation Room and welcome. I am here with Jerry Thorne, City Muga, and Nduoko.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on what they're saying?
Okay, I'm not a very informed listener or reader of the papers, but it's because of what I observed, and then I had to stop. And it's only recently that I've come back to reading papers, and I really appreciate your show. I think it's the only show of its kind.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, so
You are very observant. It is. Yes.
So because I needed to know what are people thinking, I only have my own thoughts, and I'm in a vacuum.
You want to share and compare and contrast.
Indeed, and to know whether I'm thinking correctly or my mind is, But I really agree with what you're saying. I just do not. I think Latif is currently representing the media moguls and the people who manipulate
Ruto and
the
them.
world, exactly. And that is, yes, and actually I get my news from elsewhere. For example, I wanted to know, when I really admire Tabitha Keroche, the lady of Keroche Industries, and I believe she represents what we all want to be, what we aspire to be. You work hard, you make it. And we all, do not like the way the government uses our money. And I wanted to know, did the government use the correct procedure in arresting that lady? Were they justified in harassing her and harassing her husband properly? I mean, the way they did it, the way they manhandled her, and I could not get that information. And I was like, why isn't anybody telling us what happened and whether this is correct? Why isn't there anybody talking on behalf of the public?
Right.
Helping us to understand, is this what we should expect? Because really, it was just barbaric. It was wrong. I now do not like Uhuru. Anything he says, I don't like to hear anything. I'm not buying Brookside milk based on what I watched. And when I'm trying to get information, I don't have it. So now I'm having to go to my contacts and find out, did what they did, was it justified? So I think the media really needs to do a lot. And the reason I believe that we don't have the proper media is because we don't have somebody with money to back somebody who's saying the truth. Look at what is happening in Russia. If you report the truth, you die. That whole place is run by Putin. And it's not only one country, it's many countries. So I think, Eric, there are many of us who are tired. And we all know what's going on. And we are all looking for alternatives. As soon as I find a proper alternative,
Your ship has sailed.
Nancy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Nancy, you see, you said you stopped consuming, right?
Yes,
There's
I
a
did.
variety. There's a huge and wide variety of media houses, and they're not all the same. For example, you've just landed on the Situation Room on Spice FM, and you're saying it's different.
Yes.
So
Yes, because I don't have any other. I haven't found another.
No, not because
In
you
fact,
haven't found
Nation tried and
another.
failed.
It's because this is what we set out to be, right? It's because we set out to actually tell you the information as it is, because we set out to tell you the stories as they are, and we are media.
And look at it critically.
And we are media.
Yes,
so
that's
it
correct.
happens.
No, tell me another one like you, because Nation tried and stopped, isn't it? They had a radio show. They tried and stopped. So you guys are the only ones who have come up again. At least I haven't found another one. I don't have the time to watch TV, so I need the radio.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying.
Just stay here. Don't move.
Scarcity.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for calling us today in the Situation Room. Have a good day.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. That's the telephone number. We are opening up the phone lines. The conversation continues here. It's 0719-012-600. I don't even know what to pose as the question that you are. Please, just do it.
This is the position here, because I can understand now you're leaning towards this argument. So it's really all right, Eric. In this case, what we are saying is that we've spent too much time focusing on issues that really do not matter in terms of how they affect us as a country. We are not, and specifically from the media perspective, from the media point of view, we have this space, we have this wonderful platform as media that we can use, especially for our dailies, and we choose to focus on the little politics of the day. We choose to focus on the really what should appear in the gutter press or in the tabloids, as it were. And we are not looking at what could actually shape national opinion, what could actually influence decisions in the right direction as per who then we put into power and put into leadership. We are wasting the inches that we have.
Okay, Ndu, relax.
I'm relaxed, but I can see now you've
crossed over. 0719-012-600. 0719-012-600 is where we're having this conversation. You are in the Situation Room right here on Spice FM. Eric Latif, Jerry Thorne, C.T. Muga, and Ndu Oko. What do you think? Is the media on the right or on the wrong here? Would love to know. Good morning. It's 7:30.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelogue. Travelogue is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelogue, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar, live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right. The state of Kiambu Road at Ridgeways is a total mess, and this is feeding into Thika Road, which I think the word this morning is mess. Because if we look across on Gong Road, apparently this is also a mess. And Mombasa Road is at a standstill all the way from Syokimau. The Maruri Junction is also a mess this morning. So yeah, we seem to have it everywhere we look. It's the time, it is the hour. And I guess we just have to be a little bit patient because everybody's on the road trying to get to work, trying to get about their business. If there's anything extraordinary we need to know about, please do let us know. For now, you can tune into the Situation Room while you're in traffic, and we'll keep it flowing as much as we can. Give us a call on 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
27 minutes to 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is the Situation Room with me, Eric Latif, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. 0719 012 600. Is the media on the right or on the wrong path? Good morning, Timothy.
Morning. How is our esteemed panel this morning?
Very good.
The esteemed panel is just bashing the media this morning.
Panels, thank you for calling them esteemed. Thank you.
Now, Latif, you know, there's no house.
What is it?
There's no. Hold on. Relax. We're on the same side.
Ah, good.
No, we're not.
You what? Cut him off. Don't give him the airtime.
You know, there's no house. There's this African saying that there's no household which has thieves, or is it which has witches? So, Latif, Eric, I understand where you're coming from, where your argument is coming from.
My household has no witches.
Wait
It
for
has
it.
no witches.
Wait for
So
it.
that's okay. However, the thing is this: everyone is entitled to an opinion. You know, you're entitled to your own opinion, but facts are facts. And the media houses, in my opinion, which I'm entitled to, are making a mistake by just going and reporting what, for example, the left side of the politicians are saying and this other side are saying, and saying, you guys decide for yourself what the facts are. We don't know, another example, what happened with Eurobond. We were told that we did 200 billion. It came in. One side of politics said the money was stolen. The other side said the money was properly used. The media was supposed to come in, do a proper investigative piece, and tell us what the actual facts are. Not report the opinions and say, you guys decide.
There was a lot
know,
of coverage, Timothy, on the Europol.
There was a lot
Not
of
just
coverage,
from what
but
Baba was saying, and
I get that.
not
By
from
the
what
way,
Rotich was saying, but from the
Yes.
actuals.
Timothy, you
Yes,
must
I
understand
get that,
that
but
with,
if you
with
ask me
Eric, one
today,
article
yes.
constitutes many articles. So,
But
yes.
my point, Eric, is this. If you
Yep.
ask me today, was Eurobond money stolen or not, I cannot answer. I cannot tell you for a fact this is where you should go and find out. The Auditor General said he cannot accurately and completely account for that money. If the Auditor General himself has said that, you'll come back and say, Rotich has said the money was there. So Auditor General said one thing, Baba said another thing, Rotich said, Auditor General said the third thing. You guys decide what the facts are. That's not our job. That's the job of the fourth estate. The fourth estate.
Timothy,
You are, yes.
you agree with Njeri when she says that the public has no capacity to understand?
No, you've oversimplified
I
it.
think, no. We have the the public.
Ignore
Okay.
Njeri's pet
I
word
think-
of a simplification of things. What do you think of what she said?
I think that there is a section of the public which might need a bit more simplification.
And which section is this, Timothy?
I'm just saying that if you explain things, it's not that they lack the intelligence to understand. Possibly it is that how the media is being disseminated.
Absolutely. Can I
This is where we are
expound on
coming.
this
So
a little
how
bit?
how the news is being disseminated.
Yes.
You know, if you tell me to read the news, for example, in another language which I'm learning, I'll sound like I'm not intelligent. But if you explain something to me, if you tell me to explain myself in my mother tongue or in my native, in the language I've grown up speaking, then you'll be like, this person is very intelligent. So sometimes it's just the language which is being expressed to them that they're not completely understanding. So but my point basically is that the media cannot just say we're going to report both sides and then you decide for yourself. Opinions are opinions, but the media has to be first and foremost on fact.
Can I just elaborate on a point there that seems to be getting reinforced in the studio, because of course it's a very negative aspect of me and Eric enjoys riding that wave when he says that I think the public doesn't know what they're doing.
You do.
What I'm suggesting is that maybe not everybody is as discerning as perhaps those of us who take a keen interest in the media and what the media is doing. So some people will be, for lack of a better word, a little bit more gullible. And they will ingest materials such as Linturi and Ketani and assume that it is of national importance because they're not as discerning. They don't have a keen eye like we perhaps do because we're interested in the media, we're interested in the news, and we're interested in governance. As a result, they will think it is a matter of importance, and in doing so, not realize what is actually important to them when it comes to voting, i.e. the issues that actually affect them. So it's a little bit more complex than me just saying people don't know. What I'm saying is because of what they're being fed, they might actually place a lot more importance on these issues and not realize, and this is where the media is failing and why it's important, not realize that instead we should be looking at food security, housing, something like the big four. We should be looking at education, health, and so on.
Timothy, Njeri has actually sanitized her view tremendously, and we must thank her
tomorrow
for
I
it.
will talk about weighted voting. I also have another view which is extreme, that not everybody deserves the same vote. Tomorrow I will talk about weighted voting and how it should work for us. But that's something different altogether.
Timothy, yes.
One example. Okay, can I give a small example of where media is failing? Not in Kenya, like in the US. If you sit down and watch Fox News, you'll believe that Trump is an angel. America is doing
the
great.
best.
Become the best.
And
If you watch CNN, America is burning. It's failing. But there's a healthy middle somewhere. But if you sit down and consume one, if you already have that confirmation bias inside you and you read the newspaper, you'll say the government is lying or the government is telling the truth and the government is perfect, even in Kenya. But the news, the role that our independent media should be playing, I understand, there's ownership bias because the media is not owned by everybody in the country. There's somebody who's set aside their money. They have an agenda. And Latif, I think that's what we are saying.
Okay.
That somewhere there, you have to be cognizant of the fact that the owners have an agenda, and it's okay. We understand, but somewhere in there, we need a journalist will come and say, I know that you're the owner, no problem. I'm going to investigate this
And this
from
is
start to finish.
this is what we shall say.
And we are going to present it. And I know,
Okay.
and I know that internally you do have that, and you'll be told, no, this one in Imoto Sana, iweka kando. We know because we can see the effects of it.
Timothy, thank you very much for your contribution this morning. Have a good day.
Asante.
I also have Patrick on the line. Patrick from Juakali in Eldoret. Good morning, Patrick.
Morning.
Welcome.
Morning, Patrick.
Good morning.
Yes. Also, I want to contribute
Please do.
a few ideas. The fundamental objective of any media house or any licensed media is to inform, entertain, and maybe do research on the issues that touches a common mwananchi.
And educate, yes.
Say for example, these mega scandals. You have been reporting, you have been reading over the papers. Money has been stolen. There is fake money being produced somewhere or whatever. You see, the public interest is to know, is there any fact? And it is the media house to find out that if there is a fact, inform the public, then see what step can the government take on that issue. If there is laxity by the government, it means the government is behind, and the public should be given a way forward, what to do to save the country. Because right now the economy is so down to an extent that common mwananchi is confused, is broke. There is so many issues to report. So for the case of, let's say, domestic issues, those are so minor issues that it should not be given a lot of time. Yes, it is good to report. It is part of your job.
So it's
but
okay to report
Don't
it.
focus.
Don't focus. Don't spend so much time on
focus.
it.
There's a little corner
Yes,
story.
don't
It's
spend
okay.
a lot of time.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
you
Patrick.
see, some yes.
Thank you for your contribution this morning, and thank you. Have a good day in Eldoret.
Yes, thanks.
The conversation is heating up this morning very much. 0719-012-600. It's so hot that Killen actually had to call back. Killen, you have something you wanted to say, Killen?
Yes, Killen back here.
Yes.
Oh, this is Killen once again, and I am bringing in another way of how I see things. My way of looking at this thing is like I'm seeing a situation where media actually is not conducting the information dissemination according to how the practice should be putting it.
Can I ask you
You know.
something? Do you think they have a duty to do so as profit-making entities and they're independent? Yes, they're licensed, but so are other businesses. That's more to regulate them from sort of inciting and things like that. But they're independent, they're private companies, profit-making. Do they have a duty to inform the public the way you're saying and disseminate the information the way you're saying? And if so, is that duty legal, moral? Ethical?
One thing that we have to observe before I answer your question, if you stand up to be a painter, people will judge you by how you paint. If you stand out to be an artist by drawing or a fine artist, people will judge you by your work. How do you want me then to judge you now? That is my first question. My number two question is, if you were supposed to then report this thing and give direction, because the world is controlled by information, depending on which kind of information you want to give to the masses. And for example, I'm finding this very, very interesting. I heard the other lady talked about like nation started something like this, and something like this has never happened. I'm so glad that this is coming from spies, and I hope that you're going to be as consistent as your
And better.
That's
This
the
is
plan.
Kenya's biggest conversation, and we're here to stay.
I can assure you, with 20 years on my belt, we will maintain this line.
Let's not jump into the bandwagon of cheering and supporting what I'm saying. Let's address the hard facts that are, there's so much waters that have gone down the river.
Under the
and
bridge,
we know.
right?
Yes.
This is true.
And let's look at it. Let's give it a more civil look. But are we in a position to give it out as raw as it is, or are we in a position of getting more information, more inside information that we have done? Like, for example, I was just giving an example this morning again. But if you look at the kind of way the police has been reporting on the 72 million that was stolen from the ATM, it's progressive until where we are. Yeah. Can we have another approach of the same? I'm not meaning that it's only about the stolen money, the dilapidated economy, of every other thing. We are talking about environment. Is our environment safe? No, media is giving us this. Is our health system a guarantee that we have a lifeline in this country? We are not getting something like this. Should we have an organized way of reporting things? Like, for example, I will tell you from January to date, 87% of the headlines is about politics. Honestly, we are not getting anywhere, but I'm not seeing any development cited,
And
We
to ask
need
the question to go further from that is, look at the headlines and the way that, how have they affected us? How has it changed anything in terms of where we are? How has it moved us in a forward trajectory just from that? Has it helped? And those are the things, are the questions that we should be, those are the benchmarks we should be putting ourselves against.
I support that because what we have been reduced to, our headlines have reduced us to cheap village gossip. Yeah, this is what our headlines have just turned this economy to be. We don't have a substantial thing that would give somebody a motivation to wake up, to rise up, to do something good for this country. We have reduced it to simple gossip.
All right.
Guys, I've got to go. I think I'm picking a call somewhere, then we will talk.
Thank you very much, Killen.
Thank you, Killen.
Lydia, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your good program.
Morning, Lydia. How was your
keep our
weekend?
mind working. Thank you. Very good.
Oh, great.
I wanted to say that the Nation Radio was closed down just because they said the government was corrupt. Imagine. And now, why doesn't the government answer to all the money that is lost? And they keep on taxing us, and they want to tax for you to drink bottled water. Water is life. How can they tax? They've taxed and taxed and taxed till the poor man has no money left. Everybody's broke. So the government has to answer for it. They closed the nation.
The government should be made to respond to many of these things. And you're saying that's what the media should do, Lydia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your contribution again this morning. And continue listening, of course, to Spice FM. Lydia, always calling.
I do enjoy your program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE. We're also live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the first and only 24-hour audio-visual radio station. That means that you can watch us in the studio as we have these conversations. 0719-012-600. Let me pick up more calls. Good morning. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Hello.
Spice FM.
Yes.
I'm listening from Mokoroine. I'm called Tahomboro Itamara. I'm a new listener. Yes.
Yes, Wamboro. Oh, we've lost Wamboro. He's listening from Mokoroine. Mokoroine should be on 90.9 in Nyeri. Yeah, the number again, 0719-012-600. You know, the biggest medium in Kenya is actually radio. All right. So as we talk about what the newspaper headlines are, remember this is not the biggest media in Kenya. Most people consume radio. And as a radio person, I'll tell you, the kind of programming that you have on radio, not just, in the mainstream radio stations. If you go across the country, you'll find vernacular radio stations. You'll find community radio stations. What kind of content do those radio stations have? They have a lot of information and a lot of... that's the kind of stuff that you have on media. So if you go, for example, and listen to a vernacular radio station or a community radio station in a certain area, you'll hear that what the information that they're actually discussing is information that matters to the people. Healthcare, education, agriculture, informing people on what they need to do to improve, to boost their agriculture markets and what produce is selling, the prices of produce. And then they bring in the local leaders and they have conversation with the local leaders, not about politics of, sisi tumesema, hatutaki BBI, hatutaki. No, they actually discuss the local issues, issues of what matters. People are calling in and saying, you know what, our leader, our governor, our MCA, this is what we are going through. We we need certain services here and there.
Does that suggest maybe at a localized level, leaders are more caring to their people and the media is more involved with their people? Could that be the issue?
They
Because
are held
maybe
to
at a national level, there's that detachment where you don't feel the people, you don't connect with the people at a national level.
There's that possibility, and that's why now you see that in the
that.
national level we are picking people who are calling influential people to put in the paper on what they're saying about Beba Beba.
Then it's clear that this is a kind of discourse that needs to be amplified then to a national level. In this case, we're not looking at information and trickling from the top to the bottom. But in this case, if this is the kind of thing that's happening on a community level, then this is the kind of information that needs to, pulled up. Come from the bottom up, and this is what actually needs to happen, because it's clear then that people at that level understand what it is that they have and what it is that they lack, and they realize that they have a platform to have these issues expressed, hoping that now from that expression something will be done, and that is what we need on a national level as well.
I'm in agreement.
I want to ask, Siti, I want you to chime in on this this issue. Does the media have a duty per se? This is a profit-making entity.
Yes,
based on what?
If you are in the business of selling news, because that's what they do,
or purporting to sell news,
yes, you are in the same category of someone who purports to be a vegetable business person. You are required to sell a certain quality of vegetable to your consumers. It is required. Otherwise, you are cheating. You are then, yes.
But as a vegetable vendor, I can choose to sell cucumbers alone and not bring in mangoes, for instance.
You can also choose. I think what the conversation here is, let's say you're a vegetable vendor, right? What are you putting at the top shelf and what are you putting at the bottom shelf?
You can't have
That's
people.
what you're saying.
I'm saying, yes, people
page.
can't be complaining of ailments that are attributed to your product. People can't be constantly complaining that something is wrong with it or the quality is wrong with it. You will actually stop being a vendor because people will stop buying your wares.
Yeah, do you feel not be relevant?
Maybe we don't have enough choice in terms of mediums, so in terms of newspapers. We have enough.
Choice we do. It's what the media sees themselves as. If you're talking about an autocratic institution, it's the media.
Autocratic, autonomous.
Yes. If you're talking about autocratic, it's the media. Yes, they are quick to correct.
Like I said,
I'm speaking about ourselves. I mean the media.
If we're talking about a monopoly, if it's something like a collective monopoly, that's what we're looking at as well.
You're just picking one person and saying that I'm going to punch this one.
It's like it's a consolidated. It's a consolidated
dictatorship. Exactly.
How?
Come together and we decide what it is that we're going to tell you.
Because you have that in the West as well with Rupert Murdoch, who owns so many media houses and controls so many narratives, opinions, and creates value systems.
And we don't have that here.
We do.
We don't have that to a large extent.
We have monopolies?
No, to a large extent. So you have
media moguls?
One media mogul that, let's say, has a radio station, has 7 radio stations, has a newspaper, has a TV station, and then somebody else, a media house like Standard Media Group has, TV stations, has newspapers, has radio stations. It's not monopoly. You cannot say that any of them is actually doing this and crashing the others.
That's why I said consolidated.
So who's consolidated?
So we need some pluralism.
They are not 3.
All media houses?
They are not 3. The media,
do you know how many media houses we have?
That's why we've got
over 100 radio stations.
Eric, make it even 300.
More than 100 radio stations. We've got more than 20 TV stations. In fact, not even 20. We've got more than 50 TV stations. We've got how many daily publications? Many daily publications. Many weekly publications. And I'm talking about newspapers and magazines as well. How can that be a consolidation?
Let's make it 1,000 just for purpose of conversation. Okay.
You can look at the fact of consolidation where we saw that on TV, live recordings of the court cases of this, what we choose to call garbage, as well as across the front pages of the 4 major newspapers, the 4 dailies that we saw. I mean, that's what we look at when we talk about consolidated autocracy, when we look at such things happening right in front of us, day in, day out.
I am still as a fairly switched on consumer of media, and I understand the news quite well and what's out there. I still want to know what's purpose the Linturi Marianne story was serving, unless there was a political hidden agenda, House of Cards Maneno, people were trying to do something and it didn't pan out. But I was left perplexed, confused, flabbergasted, I exasperated. I didn't know what to think of this. Why are we being fed this story over and over?
This is not new, Jerry. So it's not actually you. It's not new.
No, but for somebody with an
happens-
eye,
it
I have a
happens-
keen eye
it
for the
happens-
media.
It happens a lot that many people who have a keen eye and they say that they have a keen eye
Mhm.
always talk about this is not important. What the media is doing is not important. What the media is covering is not important. Have you sat around and had a conversation with actually decision makers in media houses?
You told me you were
Right?
once a
But-
decision
but-
maker.
but
Maybe
we
you
had
can
that discussion
enlighten us,
with you,
Eric.
Before today, have you done that?
Maybe you can enlighten us.
Because-
I have.
because-
We sat
be-
down and talked with people in media. I have an interest in media and the impact it has on society and shaping political narratives. I read about it. I've studied it at
Eric, where are you
a
going
high
with this?
level.
I want
But
to hear
my
what Eric is
question
going with this.
is, can anybody in this studio or out there tell me why we were being fed that nonsense of Marianne and Linturi?
And how it
I want to get
changed
to the
our
bottom
lives
of it
for the
so I can have
better.
some closure.
What was
I
the
want some
reason?
closure.
So this thing has caused some sort of depression, Jerry?
No,
I'm wondering what's the issue here?
In need of
No,
therapy,
usually
perhaps?
I'm able to sort of deconstruct issues, whether personal or political, whatever.
It's because you look at it from
have,
a political
I
lens.
can.
You look at it from a political lens.
And-
It's
and
not
I
the
can-
first divorce case that has been published in the newspaper.
This
Why did
was
it go
not a
on and on?
divorce
Were they even
case.
married to be divorcing?
What?
What was
a
the issue?
lover's spat. This was not a divorce case.
They are in divorce court.
It was given undue column
So
inches.
whether you want to call it whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
right? What court is it in?
Mhm.
What are the
Eric,
proceedings?
Eric.
The proceedings are not about you.
I was
stole
very
it.
careful with my words. I didn't say it was not. They were not married. I said
It was a lover's spat.
It's a divorce case.
Which doesn't matter when we're looking at the country as
And
a
it's
whole.
it's not the
That
first,
doesn't
it's
matter
not
when
the
we're looking
only.
at issues of hunger.
It's not the
It
first,
doesn't
it's
matter
not
when we're
the
looking at
only.
Okay.
issues of education. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
It's not even entertaining.
It's not
Former
even
Senator
fun to
Mudama
watch.
had a
for
case.
example-
If it were fun to watch, then
Yes.
maybe you
The
would
former-
say it was
the
something
former
that
Minister
passed
for
time.
Justice
Had a case.
had a case.
And if you look at the headlines, all right, here are the headlines. Look at it. Showdown as Coast Magistrate locked up. All right, secret plot to force teachers. This we are talking about teachers. We're talking about a corruption case. Not corruption. A case against a magistrate who the DPP has ordered to be prosecuted. We're talking about police officers in court over the 72 million shillings robbery. Those are not small cases. And we also have an entire publication on Tuesday Standard called the Financial Tuesdays. Rude exit for 1,000 bob note. Discussing all these issues. A newspaper is not just the front page. A newspaper is actually, today's newspaper, the Standard newspaper, is 40 pages. 40.
What's the headline? Secret plot to force teachers into polls.
And I said, you are a
So they're
vegetable vendor.
sensationalizing
You are
something there.
you are a vegetable vendor. You're not only selling the vegetables on your top shelf. You are selling the vegetables in your shop.
But the top shelf is what you put strategically. If we're going to go into retail, we also
Yes,
know
and
there's
this
mental
is-
construct
yeah,
or
it's-
social
it's
construct whereby you put the
Nas-
shiny things on the
national
top shelf
big
because
news.
you expect that is what people will see first and buy.
I'll give you a good example of when I've felt this actually irk
Make
me
it
and,
good.
and strike a chord. It's when you see political headlines, and then at the bottom corner, with 2 columns and 4 inches down, you see 50 perish in a road accident, and that is it starts to form the value we place on human life as Kenyans, believe it or not. When politics can be given that airtime where it supersedes the loss of 50 lives. And then we wonder, on Twitter we have conversations about why is it when there's a terrorist attack in Africa, you don't see the world, changing their flags and doing what we do, I stand with France, etc., etc. But because if this is how we're conditioning our people, where they become desensitized or anesthetized from death, because it's given such few column inches, because the newspapers do decide what is of importance depending on how many column inches and depending on how frequently or how often
in those
they
markets,
report something.
newspapers influence.
One
In this
one
market-
death in the UK would make headlines. One death. 50, it would be features. It would be page after page after page. And you get a sense that life is important.
And the
Whereas
government would
here,
take action and people would move.
absolutely.
Yes.
So you can see the role that it should play. But here you get Ruto makes statement at church, and then in the corner 50 perish in car accident.
Yeah,
What's that about?
I don't know.
This is
I
the problem
think
that we
I've painted a
stated.
clear picture of what we've been trying to say and do.
There we go. Very clear. And
I think that when you come up in the next hour, let's discuss what should be then a national headline. In terms of, and we had this conversation again earlier in the week or last week. We're talking about, the number of people who are facing starvation right now, the number of people who have actually faced starvation, the cost of living and how much food is costing, what's the cost of living right now, and all those things. And this is putting governance to account, right?
Yes.
And this is what you want to raise in the next
The plight of our students in our universities, the nature of the courses that they have in the universities. These are important things. You're talking about
the
manpower
news
resource.
that matter.
Yes.
This is a conversation that we're having right here. This is the biggest conversation show in Kenya and East Africa. It's a Situation Room. You're on Spice FM. Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and CT Muga. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, so the adjective for traffic earlier was mess, mess, mess. Now it's jam, jam, jam. Sounds like an exotic dessert because now we have issues on Mombasa Road. It's a jam. The closure of the road that has created chaos at Cabanas intersection is bringing jam. Langata Road, we are seeing jam heading towards the T-Mall junction and heading into town. There's a problem. Mombasa Road is a mess of a jam, interestingly, from Syokimau inbound. And that is what we can see. It seems that a trailer has decided to go the wrong way, which is now causing problems along that road. Mombasa Road is blocked completely, and this is specifically because of the trailer that has turned in the opposite direction. So now we know the reason, and we ask you to be just a little bit patient. Wayaki Way, Langata Road, and Thika Road are also having a lot of the same symptoms of a mess of a jam. We'll try to keep it open as much as we can. Give us a call or send us a message on 0719 012 600. We'll keep you moving this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. CT Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
3
day.
minutes past 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. CT Muga.
One of the things that we keep discussing in this particular program is, well, even if we don't discuss it, it comes up as corruption. And we talk about it over and over and over again as though it is a problem, and yet corruption has never been a problem, really. Not really, not in this country. It's never been a problem. Corruption has always been a symptom. It is a sign. It isn't the disease. And one of the unfortunate things about the corruption we talk about in Kenya, it is of categories. There's the small corruption of someone taking a bribe, a policeman taking a bribe of 50 shillings, an AP taking a bribe from some brewer of some illicit alcohol in the village, a chief being blamed for taking someone's chicken. And then there are those who are known to sort of like, it's called malpractice, but it's actually theft. Theft by servant, by law, those who understand the law will say this, someone who is in a position of some authority misusing it to enrich themselves by actually taking money that they shouldn't. And then there's the major, and then there's the mega corruption. Unfortunately, most of the corruption in this country has centered around just one particular ministry, the Ministry of Finance. Some of the biggest scandals. But hot on their heels, really, really hot on their heels, have been ministries that unfortunately have the mandate and duty to ensure that this country is actually fed, kept alive, and that the environment is looked after. So the question that I'm posing this morning, and I'm going to respond, is really, is there a scorecard for the people in authority in the position of ministers? What is it that determines the effectiveness or usefulness? Are they actually useful? The answer is they are useful. But what is it? What is the determinant? Is it the allegiance to the president? Is it the allegiance to whoever it is who gave them the job? What is it? Because the thing that is constant is that they constantly fail the citizenry. They constantly fail the citizenry. So it brings to question their relevance. And it brings to question why it is that many of them do not see the insides of a jail. That is what I am asking. And one would say, but CT, what statement are you saying? I am saying the ministers that we have in this country have failed us.
Well, this is a bit of wild conjecture there with your assertions. What are you basing them on?
I am basing them on, well, let's just start with something current.
What's your scorecard?
My scorecard is service to the Mwananchi. Let's take, for instance, those who are charged with looking after food security. Right now, if I'm looking at the Mount Kenya Star, okay, it reports that food prices have hit an all-time high, the highest 5-year all-time high, meaning, let's not even go to 5 years. What your money could buy you last year, it cannot buy you now. What it could buy the year before, do the maths. Now, we've had a maize scandal that has dogged us, not just this year, not last year, not the year before. I am saying maize because that's a staple food. That's what people eat. Ugali is what Kenyans live on. There's a shortage, there is no shortage. There is enough food, there isn't enough food. When people talk about food in this country, usually it's not variety, it's just the availability of maize. Because the non-availability of maize skyrockets the price of the product, which is maize flour. And yet, we are told that on the one hand, there is enough. On the one hand, we have to import. On the one hand, we have imported. Many conflicting stories, but the constant is that people are going hungry. And the statistics are daunting. We are told that in this country, on a daily basis, over 1 million people face starvation. On a daily basis.
2 to 4 million.
Well, the number seems to have gone up.
2 to 4 million people. This is actually according to government statistics.
For once, the government statistics seems to have gotten it right.
Can I just ask, with your sort of mood and tempo and schema today, are you just out to criticize the government, or do you have any specific issue you're talking about? You've mentioned food security, which of course is being...
How specific do you want me to get?
It's being addressed, but you haven't mentioned the external shocks in terms of drought and so on that lead to this. It's not a government choice per se.
It isn't. As
but
though,
when you say that our ministries are failing us,
drought isn't an extraterrestrial experience. It's something this country has experienced from time immemorial. We know about it. We even know the areas where you have drought. We know those who are predisposed towards this. We know. Now, the idea of food security is to take all these things into consideration. Look at our rainfall. If it doesn't rain as often as you do, or in the times you should, surely there are other measures you can take. It doesn't have to rain for you to be able to have food.
And that is why it is part of the Big Four. The president has seen that this is the case and it is being addressed. But with what I felt with your schema today,
if it's being addressed, then why is it that people are still going hungry?
Because it takes time. It's not something that you come and change overnight.
So we should let people starve.
No, nobody's starving. It is being
What?
I take that back. Sorry.
What?
People are starving, but it is being addressed in terms of these relief services getting out there, whether it's through the Red Cross in conjunction with the government and the county governments as well. I'm not defending government here. What I'm asking, no. What I'm asking and what I've felt from you today is just a very negative energy where you've come in and just said all ministries are failing us. We haven't looked at education ministry, which is doing very well in terms of, evolving and bring the education curriculum up to date. Yes, there might be some hurdles. No, there might be some hurdles, but that is likely to happen when you have public participation and the likes of that. Secondly, the old system was not providing. There's a lot wrong with the old system. There's a lot wrong with the old system. First of all, it was fact based.
As an educationist, CT, you know, you know, people have actually sat down and said, reviewed the system.
Which people have sat down? This is a politicized.
Okay, I've mentioned we will go back to it, but I know that education is evolving, and this government has been part of that drive. And education has to evolve with the times. We'll go back as to what's wrong with it. Also, look at things like infrastructure. There's been a lot of infrastructure. The other day, Ndu was reading out to us from a website how many kilometers of road have been built under this government. You have the rural electrification program that went on to make sure everybody in the country is connected to electricity. These are developments you didn't see before. But if you're going to focus on one particular ministry where there has been either corruption, that has happened in every administration.
Let's not amplify the negative. Electricity or to feed them?
The feeding, as I say, is external shocks, but it's important to give people electricity.
Hunger isn't external, my dear.
It's
personal,
it's drought.
It's
drought, and yes, some mismanagement. Drought and
Electricity is not
mismanagement.
fundamental.
Drought and mismanagement. Agriculture is a devolved function.
It is funded by the government.
But we are blaming national governments for this.
Because
I think that's a very simplistic approach.
No, food security is the mandate of the national government.
Of which it has taken on and embraced and gone and taken it a notch higher and made it that it is part of the big four. So it's not something
and
that's
that is
being
why
overlooked.
the number
and it will
of people
take time.
Jerry,
it will take time.
What exactly does it mean when it actually becomes part of the big four? So what has happened now in food
it is something
towards
that they're
food
going
security?
to
If it was part of the big seven, would it change anything?
They will focus their attention, resources, and energy into
Right.
to ensure it does not happen.
So it's been a year.
But it's something that has
been a year since it was
it's something that was happening even before this administration.
True.
So if it's a balanced scorecard, if it's a scorecard you're doing for the government, I think we need to put parameters in place. What was already existing or what was happening or taking place before this government,
and what
is taking place, what the expectations are, what are the KPIs, and what is taking place now. But we can't go back to things where I keep saying external shocks, drought, and so on are what are leading to those, and you can see the government is definitely trying to do something about it, and then use that as a scorecard.
Theoretical
I want us to look at the actual performance. I want us to. It's not theory.
It is theory because the fact is people are going hungry. The fact is people can't afford to buy the basics. Those are the facts. And I'm saying there are people who are mandated to ensure that that doesn't happen. That people can actually afford to feed themselves, can afford to do the things that they're supposed to do. You're talking about education. We're supposed to have free education, free primary education. It's not free. Parents, no, it's not free.
What do
Parents still pay. They pay all sorts of fees. They call it activity fee. They call it
Is
this
that
fee.
the school? Is that the school doing that or the government?
If it is a school doing that, how come we do not find many headmasters in jail for breaking the law?
Okay,
For
so
flouting government policy.
what you're saying is there's corruption within the schools, which is very different from blaming the government in its failure in the education
Who is
sector.
supposed to oversee the education?
No, this is now
The headmasters
corruption.
or
No,
the
this is
government?
corruption you've talked
You
about,
see,
and you've seen how difficult
implementation
it
of
is
policy,
to bring corruption,
though,
bring people to book with the judiciary. We've discussed it. So this is corruption where you've talked
Teachers
about
haven't
corruption.
been arrested. Teachers haven't been arrested over this.
No.
You see, it's government policy that we shall have free education from primary through to high school, right? And the policy is that. And the people who are actually implementing this are employees of the government. So if some member of the government is not following through with the policy of the government, then they have flouted. And the person in charge of policy is the minister. I think that's what the CT is saying.
I mean, I said it's so simple. And here it is that every day Njeri tells us that the general public, the hoi polloi, do not understand. And here
Will you stop reinforcing
an educated who is not she, an erudite intellectual, doesn't understand this simple point I'm making.
I've understood it. You have said that the teachers are corrupt and they charge different fees for different activities.
But then CT...
That is something the government cannot oversee personally. So this is corruption. And even if they do catch them, we've realized that the judiciary is the bottleneck and it's very difficult to get convictions. We're trying to catch them and there's prosecutions. But I think they're focusing more. They're focusing... Sadly, the government is focusing only on mega or grand corruption, petty corruption, which this falls under.
Be careful, you're finding fault with the government.
We're looking at a situation where I would definitely say,
you can see how balanced I am in my views. I will even criticize the government.
I would definitely say initiatives such as the Big Four agenda make absolute sense when it comes to development of the country. However, if we're going to look at something specifically like food, this is a serious bone of contention for me, because this is something that has been around for centuries. food or the lack of it, and it is something that it is here to stay. It is going to continue to be an issue. We cannot have a situation, for example, where those tasked with finding out new or, coming up with new initiatives, coming up with new programs, whereby we can have something as a basic need as food being redistributed around this country, making sure that those who need it have it, making sure that we do not have this situation where we're looking at almost 10% of the country's population at any one time hungry, starving, in a constant state of starvation. And then we have an entire ministry that is tasked with making sure that this is not the case. It cannot be. It cannot be. So there I say we have not done.
So you've narrowed it down to the Ministry of Agriculture.
I'm giving it as an example.
Because, what Jerry asked, and I agree with her, is let's not just give blanket, all right? If we are going to give a scorecard, we can't give us, if you're giving a scorecard of the Jubilee administration, it's fine.
Eric,
if you're giving a scorecard of ministries,
then let's give one person. The scorecard has to include everybody.
Well,
if we look at the Ministry of if we look at food,
yes, we can.
If we look at food specifically,
yes,
then we look at the Ministry of Agriculture. We also look at the Ministry of Environment. We also look at the Ministry of Water Resources and
Industrialization,
irrigation.
very well.
We also look at we have to look at
trade for markets.
We have to look at it collectively, for example.
So that's
and
government.
I would dare
Finance.
say when it concerns food, for example, which is the headline that we looked at, there's no reason why it should be so expensive. And we have departments, agencies that are tasked with making sure that the converse is the case. We cannot be in a constant state of begging. We cannot be in a constant state of saying we need aid. Can you imagine? Instead of planning for initiatives or putting together, what's the word? Frameworks that will make sense for the next year. We've already planned who we're going to ask for help. We've already planned where the aid is going to come from.
No, but we sound as if there's no structures in place to address this. There's measures to ensure that we reach 100% food and nutrition security, so that 34% increase in the average daily income of farmers, 27% reduction in malnutrition amongst children by 2022.
2022,
yes,
right?
By 2022.
2 years.
This is what we will achieve. Given that we've realized it was a national crisis and that resources and energy will now go into this, it will also create 1,000 agro-processing SMEs and 600,000 new jobs, 50% reduction in the number of food insecure Kenyans, 48% increase in agriculture.
Sounds like you're reading from...
I am reading. Is there a
Let me
problem
finish.
with that? I am telling you what the government is doing about it. Because you have come here and bashed the government without the facts and the figures.
Sounds like the job of the government
You're
spokesman.
reading from what the speech that the president gave, and we played it, and I can actually play it just so that I can save you, the energy of reading.
No, I was quite enjoying the reading, Eric.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you don't need to save me that.
It's a president who read that speech.
It's not a speech I'm looking at. I'm looking at a website where he communicates where people like CT should go to before coming here and throwing wild conjecture into the airwaves where everybody's listening.
You want us to go into it? Okay, let's go into it.
I'm giving you the facts and figures.
No,
you sat here and
telling us
said
what
the
they've
government
proposed.
is
What
failing.
have they done?
The
The government
is
will.
What have they done?
1 year.
Development is not always tangible.
No, we have a budget.
Have they done?
Development is not always tangible. It's not like infrastructure where you can see it happening.
You've talked about figures that
so
are
until the next time there is either
figures that need to be allocated into all these projects, right? They go into figures in money. Let's look at how much has been allocated in this financial year. It just started 2 months ago, July. How much has been allocated in this financial year to those projects that go into food security? Food and national and nutrition security is a policy of the government since 2011.
Yes.
And before that, actually, it's a good thing that we actually had a policy coming in 2011. Before that, remember I was telling you, the previous policy was in 1988 or 1984, actually, when there was the drought.
There was a major drought.
And in those days, we had price controls as a mechanism for ensuring that we have stable prices of food. Now we don't have price controls. We have a liberalized food market. Okay, so what is the government actually doing? How much has it allocated to agriculture to ensure that we have food security? I said in 2004, presidents of Africa met in Malabo and they signed and they agreed that we're going to end hunger in Africa by 2025.
Then they met again.
Okay, now this is just Malabo in 2004. Watch the 2003 one of Mozambique. 2004 in Equatorial Guinea. We are going to do this. We are going to ensure that we have 10% of our annual budget going into agriculture. How much has been allocated to agriculture in this financial year? It's not 10%.
Are we looking
So
at
if we talk
government's
about that,
duty on-
and I
the
say the
government's
if the Ministry of
duty, yeah.
Agriculture, if the Ministry of Agriculture did not look back and say, look, we have already committed ourselves to these, and this is what we are saying as a government, our policy and our project and our importance of this administration will be food security. This is how we should achieve it. Number one, let's increase the allocation of money to the Agriculture Ministry so that number one, we secure production. We secure.
Was
and
the
we-
allocation
we
increased from
reduce-
last year? Out of curiosity,
we
I
reduce-
don't know what the allocation
I
is
don't
in
know
terms
either,
of
actually. I
budgetary
think we
allocation.
should look at
Has
it
it
and see.
increased from last year? Is there progress? Is it progressive? That is a question we should be asking.
If it's a
progress-
what?
the
If it's
progress is
a,
not
if
the
it's
issue,
not
is
what- if
what
it's not
is-
10%,
No,
then
it's-
it's
No,
that
it
is
does.
nothing.
Maybe we cannot reach 10% immediately, and we will reach there by
since
2022.
2004. We are in
15
2019.
years down the line.
We are in
Okay.
2019.
Now, which tells us who was in power? What administration?
2004, the same one.
Uhuru?
In fact, I'm talking about 2014, not actually not 2004.
right.
In 2003 was the first one in Mozambique. In 2014, it was the Malabo
And I
Declaration.
can assure you, year on year, although I don't have the facts in front of me, that has increased. So it's progressive. Not everything happens overnight, especially development. It's progressive.
It's interesting to note that the budget allocation from the last budget was 3.5%, and this budget was 3.2. So it's actually gone down.
Oh my!
It has actually gone down.
Jerry, defend that one.
It has actually gone
Agriculture.
down.
I think it's
And
time
this-
for a break. Then we'll come back.
Defend that one.
Agriculture, and this is food production. We're talking about food security, and we're actually looking at 2025. You know, African leaders have said 2025. Fine, those are African leaders. Sometimes, you know, they speak from one side and they don't actually understand what they're saying.
Hold on.
Maybe they're hoi
Can
polloi
we
and all.
can we
Criti-
go back?
Can we critically look at
after the
those
break?
figures?
Let's have a break and we'll come back because there's also some factors that Ndu hasn't mentioned in terms of land.
This
and
was
so on.
actually my next
Yes,
point that I was going
thank
to
you.
mention them.
If you're going to make a statement, you must
mention them.
give it in its full entirety.
Mention them. We'll take a break
No,
in 8
but
minutes.
Look, the issue of making it time, this is a discussion. Discussions aren't lectures. So Ndu will say something, we will interrupt her, we'll give her views.
Ndu
then
was
she will
selective there. I
continue.
don't know whether intentionally or inadvertently.
wasn't
When she
selective.
I
said,
was answering the question. They
Right.
asked what was the allocation for
Okay,
the budget
can you
this year
ca-
as
can you
opposed to
carry
what
on
it
and give
was
us
previously.
In
that
agriculture.
there's a marginal increase.
There was a
of-
marginal increase of 6.4 billion to this year's allocation compared to 2018-2019. It is skewed since land and planning has been allocated to the overall budget of agriculture and rural development.
So
Thank
land-
you. So you have to
land-
take all
land-
the factors into account.
Sour. So
you
it has
can't be
increased by
selective
6
and
billion.
isolate.
So it has increased by 6 billion.
6.4 billion.
billion, an increase of
What is the
6.4
overall
billion.
percentage?
The overall percentage is 3.2%.
But are you understanding that
overall-
land has been moved into agriculture,
And
which is going
imagine-
to skew
and
these
imagine the
figures
percentage
as
Land
from
and
last
planning.
year?
Land
Land and
and
planning has
planning.
been moved into agriculture, so it's going to
Yes.
screw them. The main thing is that it has increased by 6.4 billion. With
Six-
that, you can see the efforts that the government
Alright,
is putting
what is
into
so
their
let's talk about an
food
increase of 6
security
billion.
and the measures they want.
An increase of 6 billion, and our budget is how many trillions?
No, Eric.
Our budget
No,
is how
I'm
many
not an
trillions?
economist. I'm not here to
Our
argue
budget
that.
is
What I
actually
can say is
3
you can see
trillion.
the intention
Our
of the
budget is 3
government.
trillion. Our budget has grown in the,
The
last
intention is
financial year. to this.
counterproductive. Because if you want to talk figures, you brought in the discussion, let's go with it. What is the rate of inflation in this country? What is it? 10%?
10%, thereabouts.
Exactly. So if it's 10% and you increase it to 6.4 billion from a previous amount of?
Well,
It's
this has
increased.
actually gone down.
Yeah, no, I'm going by Jerry's argument. The point I'm trying to make
previous
is
amount is X minus 6.5.
exactly. If it doesn't concur with the cost of living index, then no change has been made essentially. And in this case, we're not even where we were before. We are worse off. So the figures will confuse you because it's in the billions and it sounds like a lot. It isn't a lot.
Okay, I'm no economist. There's many strings
neither
to
am
my
I.
bow, but
It's just
economy.
looking at it from the
Neither am I.
from the number of billions to the number of how we've increased this by this X number of billions, and the budget has actually grown by X number of trillions or
Yes,
hundreds
and
of
the
billions.
inflationary rate has also
And
increased
the
by
inflationary
X,
rate has grown.
X percentage.
So you're saying it's
the point is
counterproductive.
the point is that where we are right now, and looking at 2022, we are only 2 years out. Okay, one more budget. Well, let's even call it two more budget cycles. All right, how realistic is it that we are actually going to achieve food and nutrition security by 2022.
Let's just be very honest. If there's
Let's
no
be very
no
honest.
support from the national government for agriculture specifically, even with all these other factors taken into place, it is going to be very difficult to achieve food security and have zero hunger in this country in those 2 years, which is the timeline that has been set. It is going to be extremely difficult. Without these other mitigating factors, it would be extremely difficult anyway within that time period given. But now adding all these elements to the pot, we're going to have a very hard time of achieving just food security alone. Let's not even throw in zero hunger. Food security alone, it is going to be very difficult without that support. We look at national stables, but we don't look at the support given to farmers at the community level to be able to increase the distribution, for example. There's been a failure, and it's a systematic failure. We've got to be honest about that. We've not been able to achieve it. It's very good. It's very nice to give some grandiose promises and to say that this is where we want to be. But without looking at the support has to be commensurate to the expression of your intention. Otherwise, it is not going to work.
Why this becomes sensitive is this is one area of our economy where the mwananchi, as we call them, is intrinsically involved in. So anything that
touches
happens
on them directly.
Yes, if you talk about this, you are talking about like the nerve center of this particular country.
We call ourselves an agricultural economy.
Yes. Alongside calling ourselves a Christian nation.
I don't agree with the suggestion
And middling-
to
what are
grow
we again?
avocados, not given our current situation. But of course, that would come from those quarters.
Grow avocados and export them to China.
How crazy is that? We're dealing
nutrition-
with food security, and somebody
nutrition.
comes and says grow avocados.
Hey,
I mean, really? Anyway,
I still don't understand it. To date, I still don't understand where that came
what kind
from.
of leadership is that, Eric?
I don't know.
Okay.
I do not understand.
We know where it's coming from. But no, back to CT. I think his initial statement when we came into his segment was very negative and unnecessarily so. It was a blanket
explain to me what
it
was
was a
negative.
blanket
Explain to
condemnation
me what was
of the
negative
government.
about my
You
statement,
went
please.
as far as saying why aren't ministers in jail?
Well, let me
But
answer
why-
That is how you
Okay,
ended your
all right.
introduction.
This
so it's
is
good
not-
that we've broken
this
it
is
down
not
into
an
the different
argument
segments.
that I haven't preferred before. So
Okay.
let me outline it again. All right? There's a gentleman who is responsible for having shot a 3-year-old boy. Okay? That fellow is going to be taken to court. We have many, many such cases.
Yeah.
You have a minister who is in charge of agriculture or was, and is supposed to look after food security.
That feeds people for them to remain alive.
Yes.
Right.
Out of these numbers, the 2.4 we talk about, others die. Okay? I blame him directly. Nobody else. I blame him directly. There's no passing, go and collecting 200. There's nothing in between here. Okay? I am blaming him directly because that is his docket. Now, if we're to follow the argument I preferred before, the man is a criminal because he's responsible for deaths. That's the point I'm trying to make. It may sound harsh. It isn't harsh. If you cannot manage a docket, leave it. Do something else. If you don't understand your responsibilities, leave it. Give it to other people who actually understand it.
Further, if you don't have the will to actually see these things to fruition, leave it.
Leave it.
So you're saying
you don't
the
have the
CS
will to
for
get it done,
agriculture
leave it.
Is to blame.
Are
Yes.
we on
It's failing.
agriculture now?
But
I
he's
am
talking about
giving-
food
we-
security.
we-
I'm
we've
giving
moved
an
away from
example.
food
No, we're
security.
not moving away from that. We're going to the discussion. And I'm actually explaining my line of thought.
Okay.
So you said my blanket statement was a little too, it was, what is the word she used?
Wild conjecture.
No, the wild conjecture.
Ask her.
No, I was just curious as to the basis of your assertions. I was wondering, what are they underpinned by?
Negative.
Is it a hunch?
Negative. It isn't negative. I am merely stating the facts.
Okay. And your facts were very ambiguous and grey. There were sentiments and hunches more than anything. You know, you
And a
didn't-
specific
we've-
one would have been.
We have now delved into it where we're dealing with specific ministries, and which is okay to do so when you're doing a scorecard. But can we also look at ministries that are doing well, like the education
Yes, we can,
ministry,
and we should.
like the transport ministry and
Yes.
the infrastructure we're seeing.
Yes.
Because that blanket condemnation of the government, I mean, it just kills your morale. We're doing well, for crying out
No,
loud.
we are not.
The country is doing fine.
The country is
Foreign
not doing
direct
fine.
investment is at all-time
The country
high.
is not doing fine, Jerry. This is the point. We cannot
Are all
pretend.
ministers doing well, Jerry?
No, they are not.
Let's look at the individual
Okay.
ministries.
No,
This
let's-
is what I've been trying to
let-
say
let
to
me
him.
start- let me
Even
start from
even
the
in your
blankets.
subjects, even at school, you don't get one average grade per se. You
go
say,
per
in
subject.
maths you got A plus, A star. In English you got A star. Maybe in French you got a D.
They amalgamate all that and give you a grade.
Which is crazy.
And you and
And
the grade,
so- and
and
if
the
you-
grade,
if you
the
got-
grade
if you
is
got
what
a-
determines whether you go to
No,
university.
Actually, I completely
exactly.
disagree with that, because you'd have somebody who's very good in the arts, and because it's been graded in terms of it's been averaged out and depletes his marks, then he doesn't get into university. Yet it's our next Mozart or what have
you.
you.
can disagree all you like, but that's how it works.
So similarly, even with us as a country, when we're doing a scorecard, let's pay attention to where we're doing very well, because that's something that can
All
be
right. So
amplified
can we
as
agree?
well.
So how do we want to do this scorecard? Per
No,
ministry
Jerry,
let
or
us-
overall?
No,
Are we saying
the
mean
onus
grade?
is on Jerry to tell us these wonderful ministries that have done wonderful things for the country.
No. I'm not here. I mean, the government has a budget for communication, and they can take that up.
This is
themselves.
Kenya's biggest
And-
conversation. And so this is not just our conversation in here. It's a conversation for everybody who's also listening to us in Nairobi, across the country and across the continent. Because we are streaming live on Spice FM KE on YouTube. We're streaming live as well on Facebook, Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. Our frequencies across the country, 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.6. We'd love to know what you think. How would you like us to rate this government? Do you feel that the government is actually performing well? What's a scorecard that we should use? 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Coming out of this commercial break, I'm going to open up the phone lines, and then we'll hear what everybody is thinking. And let's actually have a meaningful, elevated conversation about this. It's not about defending the government. It's not bashing the government. No. We should not do that. Not at all. But let's have a conversation. Is our government serving us well? What scorecard should we give? 0719-012-600. It's 8:30.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
The truck on Mombasa Road has been pushed off the road, so traffic is now moving, and we can get you where you're going this morning. Apparently, that turned into an 8-lane traffic jam. Hopefully, we can get it back to the 3-4 lanes that it's supposed to be. Yeah, people have been on that road now for 1 hour and counting and not moving, but now that the truck has been removed, we see a smoother traffic. All right, Ngong Road is literally bumper to bumper. I guess 'tis the time, 'tis the hour. That's what we can expect. Thika Road, Kamiti Road, even the bypass, everywhere is gridlocked. What's happening? Well, this is traffic. Gridlock on Thika Road. There was a gridlock on Mombasa Road. That is definitely the situation on Waiaki. I'm sorry I can't give you anything better than that. But like I said, it's the hour, and we hope that dissipates as time goes by.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
28 minutes to 9 o'clock. You are in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. During the commercial break, I got a call from Dennis, who was on Mombasa Road in traffic going into town, and then we lost him. Dennis, please call back. 0719-012-600. It's a scorecard for the government. So, Jerry, CT was actually throwing it back at you and saying, you tell us.
Okay.
How would you like us to do
Throw
this?
it back at you.
Let's look at development in terms of let's you have a framework. whereby we've got the social pillar, you've got the economic pillar, and you've got the environmental pillar. And then under that, let's ask what has the government done under each pillar, because that's how development should be defined in the 21st century. Let's look at the social pillar. Cohesion, unifying the country, unheard of previously. That's what I mean by the social pillar. It's one of the aspects of the social pillar. You cannot understate that achievement,
Which
as a
achievement?
government. The unification of the country. I'm looking at the social pillar.
Setting up a commission.
Whichever instruments were used in order to achieve this are neither here nor there, but you can see the country is at peace, and you can see.
I thought the handshake did that, not the not the commission on cohesion and
No.
cohesion.
Actually, the cohesion was not even set up under this administration.
No, maybe NCIC was consulted. We don't know. But
after
what I'm saying is,
2007,
under this administration, we have seen growth under the social pillar of development. Then we move on to the economic pillar. And I'm going to be quite granular and specific, with just a few examples. We can see with Mao, them having, no matter how bad the government looks, they're going to evict those people because we must take care of our environment. So they're looking after the environmental pillar. That is progress. We look at the economic pillar. Now, this is where the discussion comes into play. You can see FDI is on the increase year on, year out. So foreign direct investment has gone up. I don't have the facts and figures in front of me, but I know it has gone up, and I will look for the figures so that I can back up my assertions. So we need to be working from that sort of framework. We can't come here and say, the government's not doing well, agriculture, and then speak of a certain crisis that has been affecting the country, i.e. the food crisis and the drought, which is an external shock that nobody has any control over, and then start to blame the government on that, or go and pick certain incidents where teachers have been corrupt and are charging parents extra for extra activities and saying, look, the government is bad even in education because it's not doing X, Y, Z. Petty corruption is very hard to find. These are individuals. We've seen even with grand corruption, even if we can catch them, the judiciary is a bottleneck. But we've seen the fight against corruption as well has taken a whole new face. Have you heard of such senior officials even being arrested? So don't tell me this administration is not doing well. And I haven't even mentioned things like rural electrification. I haven't mentioned the roads that have been built.
Actually, you did mention.
No, but listeners who have tuned in didn't hear me mention it. Just tuned in.
Okay, for their sake.
So I want to mention it again. So all I'm saying is, if we're going to come in and criticize government, let's have a schema through which we do so. Otherwise, we can sit here and because maybe we're aggrieved about one incident or another, or we've been reading newspapers or been online and we've picked up those sentiments and we have our biases, we can come and really misrepresent the government. And also, it's important the government starts to communicate their performance. That is one of their biggest failings.
The government is, it's really very difficult to over-criticize the government. It's difficult. Mm-hmm. Yes, because we judge them by the promises they make. Mm-hmm. Yes. Not by what we think or what we'd like, but they say this is what they're going to do. I'm not talking about politicians
Manifesto.
Here. Yes, they say this is what we're going to do, so we wait. It doesn't happen.
Well, there's still 2 years to go. I think
about,
when we finish,
Jerry, it's not actually about the concept of government, right? So it's not. So some projects, like we said, are started by one government, are continued by another government, are completed by another government. Let's look at specifically the Uhuru administration. And that's what CT is coming from. That's where CT is coming from. Let's give a scorecard on the Uhuru administration. Then look at it from how he's organized his government or how they've organized their government. Then look at those departments.
And it's organized in ministries.
Yes, ministries and departments.
And then
so
we look at those ministries,
when you go into those
deal
ministries
with each individual one? Because if you look at something like Ministry of Trade, they've done very well. If you look at Ministry of Tourism, they've done very well.
And very well means what? I think those are the points that we agree.
You asked me not to read, so
no. I'm saying what parameters?
I'd
like you to read if you want to read.
We didn't want you to read the president's speech.
The president's speech.
No, it wasn't the president's speech I was reading. It was a few
the points from the president's
speech
speech
that you should have looked at before you came here, and you'd have understood that he's actually doing a lot to.
He's saying
and
promising a lot.
What are our parameters? That's what I'm asking. Because you see, if we say that the government has said it's going to do ABCD, is that a parameter that we should be using to give a scorecard? Is that what we're using? Are we saying they said they would do this?
Each ministry has its objectives.
I don't understand Jerry's logic.
And objectives are measurable. So let's look at how we measure
Look at something
that.
like
And say,
devolution and how well we've managed, this administration has managed to implement devolution, and then even devolved services where you have Huduma centers, you can go and get all your services under one roof. That had never happened. And then, of course, the idea of democracy being upheld. These are, they fall under the social pillar, this idea of democracy and so on. But we saw democracy, especially with how independent the judiciary was after 2017. You wouldn't find that in an African country. So let's not just look at a crisis, pick on that, amplify that, and decide that is the tag we're going to give this government. Especially when the government is actually it's actually embraced that as one of their top agendas, as the big four.
How about?
And on top of that, this is exacerbated by drought. It's not even something the government is in control of. It's like force majeure.
Exacerbated by drought year in, year out.
It's something that has
from
area
time
is
immemorial
predisposed to, and we happen to
and
know
we are now
that this
working
is going
on it.
to happen.
We are now working on
And
food
doing
security.
what exactly?
Had we ever? I was reading you the list. Can I go back and read
No,
it, Eric?
that list doesn't answer the question.
It says what they plan to do.
Forget it.
And they are doing
So
it. We can't see it. Not all development is tangible
this in
immediately
September?
until the end of the project.
Was this in
You
October
don't see it.
2017 when they were planning this, or this is the current? Like, what is this the updated plan?
This is updated.
Jerry,
The updated plan.
you are aware
So
that we
when
have
does execution start?
It's being executed as we speak. So
Jerry.
if they're going to reach 25% of XYZ, maybe they're at 10%.
Jerry, are
but
you
until
aware
they
that-
hit that target, they're not
Jerry,
communicating.
Are you aware that drought can be anticipated? Are you aware? Just like you anticipate rain. What do these people do in terms of planning? I mean, I'm not asking a very complicated question.
I think
here,
there's
am
an entire agency that is actually, mandated with like mitigation of these disasters that we're talking about. So they are aware. They know that these things are going to come. And this is always my contention from the beginning. If we're going to look specifically at food and food security and hunger and such, this is all under the Ministry of Agriculture. Of course, the Ministry of Environment comes into play, the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation comes into play, etc., etc., etc. But we are saying that we know these things are going to happen now, today. They know the pattern that's going to unfold in 2020. They are aware. But what plans have we made? And we already know this because it has been reported to us. We know that the plans that they've made is to secure as much food aid as they can.
If let's leave agriculture, because Jerry has actually wisely and correctly
No,
told
I've
us.
conceded.
No, I don't want you to concede. She
No,
has actually
within
stated.
reason.
No, she has not. I don't want you to concede because you never actually concede. You only say you have conceded. Yeah. Just like the government who says they are going to do this and never quite do it. Look, let's move to the Ministry of Finance. Our biggest scandals, unfortunately, always emanate from that particular ministry.
Okay. Are you aware that maybe these scandals or these dealings were going on previously, and what this administration has managed to do is to start to clean it up? And the media
Every
is now
administration
reporting
has had their own.
Absolutely.
Every.
So this
from
is no more. It's
Kenyatta
just
to
wider.
Moi to Kibaki to this one.
And can you see the actions that this administration is taking?
Yes.
Officials, even very senior officials, including ministers, are being arrested.
Yes.
That is unheard of.
Yes.
And you want to tell me this government is not working? Or there's a problem with this government?
No. I do wish that you would pay a little more attention to the things I say.
This is the educationist, the teacher, lecturer coming out. But, sir, kindly repeat yourself.
I didn't say the Kenya government or the government of President Uhuru has failed. Did anyone hear me say that? I didn't. I went to the ministries. The people charged. That's not the president's job. That's why he has his ministers. I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about the ministers whom he has given the function,
job to do,
and who are not doing what they're supposed to do.
And he was asking, do they stay in that office because of their loyalty to the president or because of delivering? Or
so
not
why
their
is the
job
president
has
keeping
been
them there? Was that your question?
The question:
should they stay? Are they serving us? And you said service to the people, right?
There's also, let's also bear in mind this inclusivity thing. I know it seems a bit far-fetched.
Tired. Exactly exhausted.
But we are the people of Kenya, and we do think like this. So some people are still in office because he's our guy. You see it all the time. I'm not saying that is the reasoning of the president per se, but what I'm saying is, with
Jerry,
taking
the
into
president
account
is a politician, and he will be influenced by such factors also.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It may sound like I am simply taking a bash at the current minister who was in charge of agriculture. But these maize scandals and issues surrounding maize began as early as 1965. The first major scandal this country ever had after independence was in 1965. Again, maize.
I guess it lends itself
food,
to cartels.
This wasn't. It was a one-person cartel by the name of Ngei, Paul Ngei.
I'm opening up the phone lines again.
Yes.
0719-012-600.
What did you do?
0719.
I wasn't around then.
012-600. I've got Mike from Nairobi. Mike, good morning.
Hi, Latif. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Welcome to the Situation Room.
And Jerry.
Yes.
Have just spoiled my morning.
Oh, good Lord.
Why no?
We still have an hour with you. We shall remedy that.
Okay, I just tuned in, I think, 5 minutes ago, and I found you defending what, in my view, I find so indefensible. I'll explain. How do you explain a person? Okay, let me start now with the broader picture. A country losing a record 800 billion every year to corruption, and you say even if we lost 800 billion and we are doing all the superhighways that we can have in this world, does that make it any better? That is one. Secondly, Jerry, are you able to afford the life that you used to afford 3 years ago, same time, unless you plan articulately? Otherwise, you'll not survive the month with that salary you get in Spice FM.
I get a very good salary, thank you.
Jerry, are you aware of the Galana Kulalu project? Because you were talking about famine and drought and all that. Are you aware that Israel receives a quarter of the amount of rain we receive in Kenya? And it's feeding us. All courtesy of corruption. Whether they arrested the whole government and put everybody behind bars or did not, bottom line is the Kenyan on the streets feels nothing, actually cannot relate to what you're saying. In fact, I'm shocked. Personally, I'm a medic. Patients who would have otherwise afforded procedures and drugs let me talk of 5 years ago, right now are struggling. In fact, have lost enough, courtesy of the current economic crisis. So this development narrative that is coming up, that even the government itself is struggling to tell the local Kenyan, ask the local Kenyan around what does it know, that what does he or she know the government has done. He'll just tell you a railway which he barely uses. In fact, apart from the railway, what else do we know about this government?
And that's why I'm speaking from my position today, because no matter how thin you slice it, there's always two sides. So just it's interesting that you've said he only knows about the railway, and this is where I say the government has failed. There has been other developments. Talk about rural electrification. Talk about the roads that have been built, infrastructure development. No, it has been there. Maybe it's not widely reported, and this is why people don't know. I'm not negating any of the things you have said, and it's terrible that people can't afford basic procedures. You know, it's heartbreaking, and of course, economically, there is more that could be done. But my job here today was to counter what CT was saying, so that we can widen the conversation and people know that.
Okay, now I get the point.
No, not for the sake of it. I also not just for the sake of it. It's an honestly held belief. What I am saying is an honestly held belief by myself that the government has had achievements, and we can also talk about those. And it doesn't take away. I am not refusing what you're saying, that the common mwananchi is feeling it, or people have said, and a number of people have said to us, you know, our money doesn't stretch the way it used to. You know, we don't get the same for our penny or our shilling. So I'm not taking away from that. I'm saying, but also this government has focused on cohesion. It's focused on democracy. It's focused on devolution. There's growth there. It's focused on infrastructure. There's growth there. It's been revolutionary about education. There's growth there. It's important that we look at the whole picture.
Look at it from both sides, Mike. That's what Jerry's saying.
Okay, fine.
Don't have such a bad day, man.
But don't really. You know, it gets to an issue when you struggle looking at both sides and coming up with something good.
Yeah.
In fact, they're not doing anything out of this world. In fact, they're doing nothing to improve the life of the common man down here. Currently, even if you talk about the rural electrification program that was so hyped up, we know most of those households that were connected right now, they are back using mishumas.
Oh, you
Why?
have evidence of that? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. That's the thing. I was there in those sites of Baringo. Most of those shows who are connected to some bulb, right now they're not using those bulbs because they cannot afford the token.
Right. So maybe something to address with KPLC.
It's a cost as well.
Maybe something to address with KPLC.
At the end of the day, it's not even about KPLC. It's about the privilege, the cost of living that we are enduring, courtesy of mismanagement, poor leadership, and I mean, let's face it. We've had a loss for the last 10 years, and for sure, I'm foreseeing another 10 years of another loss. So brace yourself for 20 years of pure losses in terms of legislation,
that's a pretty bleak outlook,
bleak forecast,
and all that.
No, that's a very negative or bleak outlook. I mean, there's a lot of positives.
Thank you for your contribution this morning, and we always appreciate you joining us in the Situation Room every morning.
Thank you.
I want to wish you a good day and also welcome Yego, another ardent follower of the Situation Room. Yego, good morning.
Good morning.
You've been hearing what Mike is saying, and you heard the conversation that also we've been having this morning. What are your views on this?
Maybe I'll start on the few about the ministers.
Yes.
I think the ministers are just in the office because of the political will and the sidelines.
What do you mean?
I think they are in the office because they are loyal to the president and maybe the deputy president. It is not about service delivery.
So you don't think that they are actually delivering in their service?
No, there is nothing. They are nothing. They are not delivering. Because look, for example, Mwangi Kiunjuri. How many cases are flawed in the docket of agriculture? And up to date, the guy is still holding in the office. The president, the last 1 year or 2 years, he was threatening him that Utaniona. Utaniona. Up to now, there is nothing going on. Those guys who had imported maize and those they are not paid, the farmers. They
so
have not.
Who do you think is loyal to Kiunjuri? Who do you think is protecting him, or who do you think he's working for, or why is he still there?
The president is the one protecting Kiunjuri.
Not the deputy.
Because no, not the deputy. Because if it was a deputy, Kiunjuri could have been fired.
Why do you say that?
Listen, immediately after the handshake, because after the handshake, these changes which has come after the handshake, those affected ministers are the ones alienated to the deputy president. Look, for example, Ejesa. Why was Ejesa fired?
Is the only one who's been fired.
Oh, okay. Yes, so hold on, let me get this. What you're saying, the ones which have been asked to step aside or have been fired, they're the ones who are affiliated to DP.
Look, even before, the likes of Davis Chirigiri before the last past term of Jubilee, the only affected person was Jared Kalekungulu. But these other guys, all of them are alienated to the deputy president.
Could it be him that wants them fired? Maybe he's fallen out with them personally? Because they will be replaced by one of his guys, if we understand that how that politics works. Didn't we have...
Some panelists are refusing this fact, but the fact is the president and deputy are not in good terms. That is feasible. And it's only that we are trying to run away from it. If these guys were in good terms, we could have another person acting in the treasury as being alienated to the deputy president. Even Ejesa was replaced by Amina. Amina is the president confident.
Okay, and all these are just your hunches and your speculations. Of course, you've got no evidence to prove.
No, they are evidence.
Where?
They are evidence. Where? Because I will let me go
specifically. Don't let Jerry push you. This is politics, and your view is just as right as the next person's
No, that's not a view. That is a hunch. No, with mine, it's not an opinion. It's a fact. We must distinguish the two.
Let's come back to the docket of agriculture. We had irrigation in the docket of agriculture.
Yeah.
Where was it? Why was it moved? Because this was a feasible thing that could bring down Mwangi Kiunjuri. But because the president is protecting him, that is why he was kind of relieving him some duties. so that they can just remain there.
So the president was tired of him, as opposed to not seeing that he was doing his job right.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But then how would you like to rate the government? If you were to actually score the government minus the politics of protectionism, right? In terms of
Yes.
service delivery, what yardstick would you use? If you were to talk about, let's say, the Ministry of Agriculture, what is it that it's supposed to do and it hasn't done?
No, let's forget about the Ministry of Agriculture, because that one has failed totally.
So let's go to water. Let's go to water.
Let's come to water.
Let's go to
because
water.
We are seeing these tunnels being constructed, dams. They are a good move about delivering water to Kenyans.
So what movement have we seen in water and provision of potable drinking water to people?
For example, there is this huge tunnel. Was it from Muranga?
The Northern Collector Tunnel.
Yes.
From there, but they are bring water to Nairobi.
Yes, in some few months we will have water in the Nairobi area.
That's one.
We had Kimwaror before these guys of my alley to my friend stole all the money. That's a good project.
So then we don't have Kimwaror and Kimwaror.
That one we cannot count because
we don't have it.
We cannot count.
Who stole the money? Who stole the money, Yagan?
No, I cannot give the facts.
On that one, you don't have evidence. On this particular one, you don't have evidences, Diego.
Because with your friend, you seem to be very subtle and ambiguous. But when it comes to the president, you're very quick to say he's protecting so and so and so and so.
You know, the other matter is in court. The court.
So you can't discuss it.
I don't want to be among the witness.
He's a sharp man.
In terms of electricity, though I had my friend saying that the common mwananchi cannot afford, that is true, because you can imagine when you buy tokens of 1,000, you are given a token of, I don't know, 557 shillings. The other one is tax. But the Uru government was doing much, because we have seen some, there is dispatch in power in most of the reserves. Yeah, that one I could.
So energy, you give it a tick.
Okay.
I give it a tick in energy.
Environment?
Yeah. I don't know much about environment.
Which one do you know about that you're happy with? You can give another tick. Tell us about that one.
I can tell you also in environment, there's Mao.
Mao is politicized.
Okay.
It
you
is.
cannot claim to be saving Mao when another areas is drying. We have a lot of people living in forests. The only people who are not living in forests is those who are living in eastern province and northeastern.
Okay.
But the other guys, all of them are in forest.
Yagon, you were telling us which ministries you're happy with, which ones you give the tick. We've decided you're happy with the rural electrification program.
That's energy ministry.
Yes, Ministry of Energy.
And water as well.
And water. And then we have, I don't know, this one for transport, where does it belong to? Because we have seen a lot of transformation in our highways.
Excellent.
It's one large ministry. It's called Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Yeah.
Yes, that one, I think if I was to rate, I would rate it 80%.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. Okay. And finally, maybe I'll rate Spice 7 because right now I'm calling from Matu.
Matu.
Oh, you moved.
Yes, I'm good.
You're now in
Yes,
Matu.
I traveled yesterday and I was worried. Yes, so I was worried if I can get them to follow the show. But I was very, very happy to be following the show here.
Thank you so much, Diego.
Thank you.
Asante, have a good day, Edu. So, you know, the scorecard as he's given it is basically saying this ministry, I can feel the impact of this ministry. I can feel the impact of this ministry, and I cannot feel the impact of the other ministry. But also it becomes subjective, because if I can feel and you can't feel,
well, that's why it's important to have these conversations. The previous caller said, I depressed him. How dare I say that there's anything good about the government when there's XYZ going on and, expenses. That's his view, and that's what he's feeling. And it's important that we get a cross-section of society, what they're saying, because some people will have felt it. I know, for instance, with devolution, a lot of people are enjoying the service delivery with the Huduma centers. And these are the views we also need to hear, so that we've got a a balanced view of the government when we discuss the government, of ministries, how they're performing, the different ministries, as opposed to CT coming here and the blanket criticism, which just kills the morale of Kenyans. Kenyans were enjoying their day with Spice FM.
Jerry, this particular net has to be cast wide. If you don't cast it wide, there is no discussion.
You can't catch any fish.
It will catch nothing.
But I think what's emerging is that the government is performing in quite a few areas. I think primarily infrastructure.
Few.
That's a colloquial term. In quite a number of areas. And I think most importantly, there's some areas that are not tangible. So the tangible ones, infrastructure, we can see, we can feel it. Everybody's happy about the roads, and we know what economic development that will bring later on. Sadly, some of these things you feel the benefits a little bit later on. So infrastructure is doing great. But of course, I keep saying it, this social pillar, we must look at it in terms of development. Democracy has grown under this administration. We've seen devolution grow under this administration. We've seen cohesion under this administration. So that is yet another pillar of development. And
devolution could only grow under this administration because it's the only government that has had.
No, it could have failed to implement it. It has been successful in implementing it.
There was too much pressure for it to do anything else.
Other than
no.
Now let's see what's actually going to happen in the next couple of years. Especially when you talk about the BBI and the talk of amending the constitution. And there's also been talk, and it's been raised before, on whether you should amend the constitution and scrap and reduce the number of counties from 47 to 46. Make Nairobi,
46?
Yes.
All right.
Remove Nairobi from being a county and make it part of the national government. Be an administrative center, hub of the national government.
So a
territory per se.
Yes. This is actually not small talk. It's been tried before. It's been tried by 2 senators before. One was in the previous government, Senator Kembe Gitura from Murang'a. He had said he'd like to bring that motion to Parliament. It went to Parliament. It was just lost in the first reading because then Senate adjourned to go to the election. Then, in this administration, last year, Kericho Senator Aaron Cheriot said the same thing. Let's actually scrap Nairobi from being a county. Let's have 46 units of devolution and not 47.
And the logic is?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the reasoning or the basis.
I'll give you all of them.
Excellent.
I'll give you the exact reason what Aaron Cheriot had in mind and what he was saying about that and what exactly he meant. Because this is a conversation that we can have again this morning. Should we scrap Nairobi from being part of the counties and give it to the national government and say a minister shall be in charge of the Nairobi metropolitan area? Well, tune in for this. This is the Situation Room right here on Spice FM. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
All right, let's take a look and see if the situation is getting any better. Sorry, but not really, because we still have an issue on Thika Road. Traffic as usual. We don't know anything different at this time. Very heavy traffic on Mombasa Road, and this is as a result of the trailer incident that we had earlier on, and that is feeding on past Cabanas, past GM, and all the way down as you approach Haile Selassie. All right, one place where things are looking good, Lusaka Road is moving well, no jam at all in the industrial area. Apart from that, our usual suspects of Langata Road and Jogo Road moving smoothly, entering into the CBD. That's the situation. Call us 0719-012-600. You see something that we should know about or something that we can let others about, do give us a call or send us a message. Keep you moving this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start.
So, Kenya has 47 counties, right? From county number 001, that's Mombasa, to county number 047, and that's Nairobi. And actually the Nairobi one is called the Nairobi City County Government, NCCG. Now, we've had talk a number of times before saying, I think we should not have Nairobi as a county. Let's have Nairobi because it's the capital city of the city of the country. Let's have Nairobi being managed and administered by the national government. So the president appoints a minister to run the affairs of Nairobi, and so that the national government actually handles Nairobi, because Nairobi is the hub of the country. Nairobi is the biggest economic hub for the country. Nairobi is very important. Nairobi is the face of the country. Nairobi is the gateway to the world from the country. It's big. Of course, this has been fought a number of times by the governors, by the Nairobi politicians, including the Nairobi senators. We've seen this. It emerged again during this, now that we're having this talk about amending the constitution. Maybe it's about time that we revisited this issue. Maybe it's about time that we actually had Nairobi being run by the city, by the national government. Actually, when we discussed the other day, what would happen? What if we had an issue with the Nairobi governor today? Because we do not have a deputy governor, because we have issues with the county assembly and the speaker and the court order and obeying of court orders. And even at some point, even Jerry said, well, it can revert to the national government.
Why are we having this discussion?
It can be run by the national government.
I mean, Nairobi was a province when we had provinces, okay? It's now a county when we have a county. What is this thing that has happened that suddenly we think that the status of Nairobi should change from what it has always been to something new? What is this thing?
I'll come at you from a few different perspectives. First of all, from the intentions of the drafters of the Constitution and Majimboism and devolution. Of course, in the backdrop of that was tribalism and the idea of marginalization. For Nairobi, because we don't have a tribe that Nairobi belongs in, Nairobi is very cosmopolitan, it would be very easy for this to then fall back into a ministry, as you suggest. And that also covers your question, why Nairobi? We didn't need devolution in Nairobi per se. We didn't need to decentralize power based on the fact that communities were feeling left out of central power, because Nairobi is not owned by a particular tribe. It's very cosmopolitan. But I think very importantly is Nairobi is too important a hub in the region. I'm not even forget even in the region, in Africa. For what we are, a financial hub. It's very strategic. We're growing. There's a lot of money invested here. We attract a lot of foreign direct investment. For us to be placing our future in the hands of a populist candidate, which is what can happen. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with populist candidates, but we need people who understand economics beyond a certain level. They're negotiating for us at an international platform for some of these things. I'm sorry, I'm not undermining anybody, but I'm just laying out.
A candidate as opposed to a corrupt government, okay?
No, you can have a corrupt government, but you see, at least with a corrupt government, and this is just for argument's sake that I'm putting this forward. With a corrupt government, you can go for them on charges of corruption. With regards to populist agendas, what can you do? This person has voted him in. This is how democracy works. But this is democracy negating itself from the gains of democracy, because this person doesn't work for the people per se. What they do is they give you a fish as opposed to a net, which you need. So populist agendas don't work.
Differently, of course.
Populist agendas don't work. But at least with the government, what happens? Because what they're doing, you're back to national government.
It's the national government I'm talking about, because, I mean, you're you're saying one thing and I'm thinking, but where's the difference here? The very thing you're saying, a populist government would negate, the government would do it 10 times worse. So The national government.
What makes you say that? I mean, the government has measures in place.
The track record of the national government is clear.
We have measures to fight things like corruption. If it's corruption you're talking about coming, we do. The measures are there. At least they're there. The law exists for that.
And in the county government, we don't have it.
with a populist, there's nothing to counter some of the antics that you see.
But why is it that
for me,
so many governors are now facing charges?
For me personally, faced with the law or an angel, I will always go with the law. Because the devil will come disguised as an angel. You never know what you're going to get.
You're the person who said
better that we remember. No, it's better.
Are you suggesting that there is a law for people who are popularly elected and there's a different law for people who are in government?
No, what I am suggesting is democracy does have its pitfalls, and you can get the wrong people in because you're excitable. They're excitable.
Wrong.
No.
Wrong.
What I'm saying, we're comparing a national government and a populist. And we've said both have their pitfalls. The national government has its corruption element. And with a populist government, some of the service provision or some policies might not be the best policies for the people in the long run. And then we're juxtaposing those two and comparing them. And what I'm saying, at least with a corrupt government, there's structures in place and a framework through which we can bring to book the government in terms of corruption. With populist policies, there's actually no checks and balances on that.
Jerry, the government is led by a president who was elected.
Popularly.
Exactly.
Popularly by the
What
people.
is the difference between the national government and the person who leads it and the populist government that you refer of, the county government? They are both populists.
But if you look at Nairobi, like Jerry was saying, if you look at Nairobi and the central place that Nairobi occupies in the country, first of all, it's a capital. It's recognized as a capital, right? So the seat of the national government is in Nairobi. The seat of, if you look at it as an economic hub, Nairobi currently as it is the economic hub of the country, right? If you look at it in terms of the gateway and the importance it is to the region, it is a very strategic location to the region. What happens in Nairobi, they say when Nairobi sneezes, Kenya catches the cold. It actually has been said that. And it's true. If stuff happens in Nairobi that can impact economically, that goes across the country. So why not just have this one capital city being managed by the national government in place? So if the national government has been elected, it's sitting in Nairobi. So the national government actually says we have a ministry and a department that handles Nairobi, management of Nairobi. Right now, as we speak, we've got a national government actually doing a lot of work in Nairobi under the Nairobi Regeneration Committee. The Nairobi Regeneration Committee comprises the national government from the as high level as the cabinet secretary and county government from as high level as the county governor. And they're working together to do what? To regenerate the city. What is regeneration of the city? All these things that we're seeing, the roads being constructed. We're seeing the lighting being done. We're seeing works being done to rehabilitate the Nairobi River. However, it's gone. You see, when we saw the demolitions on the riparian lands, that was actually being coordinated by this committee of national government and county government. Why not just have that one? So let's say we don't have to have a county assembly in Nairobi. We don't have to have a governor in Nairobi. We don't have to have a senator in Nairobi, a woman rep in Nairobi. We just have to have one minister and a government department that deals with this. Just like we used to have the local authorities ministry, now we have Nairobi Metropolitan. In fact, we had the Nairobi Metropolitan Ministry under Mutila Kilonzo. Remember? We now have that Nairobi Metropolitan Ministry running.
Did we have a county system then, sir?
We didn't have the county system then.
But who would feel aggrieved?
That's how it would look like if you're trying to figure out what kind of ministry, how would it look like? That's how it would look.
What will it enable us to achieve by going into this system? Yes. I think that's very important for us to look at, as opposed to something we do not have now. If we were to go into a system such as this, what is it that then we'll be able to do that we have not been able to do now?
What are the intrinsic benefits of this?
Okay, first of all, it would depoliticize Nairobi, which needs to happen for the growth of Nairobi. The politics that are happening in Nairobi will hinder growth, no doubt, in Nairobi. And it's what I'm saying is there will be no fallout from this because there is no tribal allegiances within Nairobi. It's very cosmopolitan. So it's very easily done.
Nairobi,
but we will depoliticize.
There in Nairobi as a whole, tribal allegiances in Nairobi.
There are, but say if you look at it from
you have tribal clusters in different areas. Exactly. So Kawangware is Luya and so on.
Areas, but then if you look at it, if you can depoliticize all that, people actually think about.
But why do you want to depoliticize it? I mean,
so that we can grow and develop. Politics interferes. No, politics interferes with development. Yes, when Sonko puts forward that he wants to build a road and his MCAs don't feel like it and they go against it and so on, that's what democracy, it makes development very complex. So in putting this under a ministry, we depoliticize it, at least from local politics in the first instance. And we don't leave it at the hands of somebody who might not have the experience and wherewithal to run such a city.
I can see how that would benefit it. I can also see how such a move per se would also help in the development of other parts of the country, because then we take away all this attention that is continually focused on Nairobi and get people to literally get out of the city and go and do the business in other parts of the country, whereby now what you do is you raise the national profile as well. So where we have the national government focusing on this territory, as it were, because if you look at Nigeria as an example, you have the Federal Capital Territory, which is Abuja. You do not have a governor, you do not have a senator, you do not have all of these little political blocks within this territory.
Yep.
And it is ruled specifically by the national government, and that basically is the heartbeat. And then it reverberates through the rest of the country. And what this does is that then you have governors in other parts of the federal system focusing on their particular territory to make sure that they also raise the profile in other parts of the country, and then let the national government deal with the heartbeat of the center of the nation. That's what we have.
And how's that working for Nigeria?
Well, I mean, we have a situation where people are then basically
Abuja is okay.
Abuja was actually created specifically for this purpose when we saw that Lagos became overpopulated, and it was the political capital as well as the commercial capital. And the government took a look and they saw, look, this is not working because we have a population of 25 million people in Lagos. And so they said, you know what, 25 years ago, we have this territory where it was a sleepy town in the central Nigeria, and we said, look, it was an area that was actually built from the ground up. Built this and said, this now will be the political capital. Let's rule basically from here. And then from here is the center. We push out all this information. We push out, you raise the profile of these other areas with getting command from this central area. And it has seemed to work so far from a federal system whereby you have governors in each state being able to do what they do, but then being basically playing roll call in Abuja.
And
Good.
of course, it's a city.
Let me open up the phone lines, 0719-012-600, because this is a conversation that actually, if we were to do this, we'd have to go to a referendum, whether it's a BBI one or Punguza Mzigo one or the new one, the initiative by the county governors. Let's see. Solomon in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, Hank. How are you?
Very well, thank you. You're here in the Situation Room with the usual people, the awesome foursome.
And good morning to everybody else.
Good morning, Solomon.
Yes, and fair enough, today I was live streaming, so I didn't know that you guys can do that, and that's good.
Okay.
So I can put the faces together. So now, Nairobi. I would think the national government controlling Nairobi would be a fair shake, simply because of its administration. If you look at it, most of the operations going on in Nairobi are more politicized. We have hawkers on the roads. We have even border people getting now into the city, and you know that was a leeway when somebody was looking for votes. You know, they tell them, we'll let you do all this. So the fact that the politics getting into Nairobi, they make other people do things that are not supposed to be. So if we have the national government running, you know, they will not compromise with anyone.
Right.
Okay, so there will be more streamlined administration where you say this is how it goes. So there will be a lot of sanity in Nairobi, and you know, looking at it, Nairobi is where cities and the countries and ambassadors and everybody is at.
Solomon,
we're losing Solomon.
Solomon, we are losing you, and I think we've lost Solomon on the line. If you can call back. We also have somebody calling back. Yego.
Yes, maybe for Nairobi.
Yes.
Yes, I just want the lawyer inside Nigeria and Sitimuka to go through Chapter 11 of Constitution about the devolved government.
Yep.
And we have Article 184, which talks about urban areas and cities.
Yes.
And subclause 1 says national legislation shall provide for the government and management of the cities and urban areas. So I think before we discuss Nairobi, I would ask you to help us understand that article. Then
you said which which article again?
Chapter 11 of Constitution.
Article 184.
184.
184.
Okay.
Yes, just to go through so that you can help us understand about that article, because I think as per Constitution, Nairobi County should have not been among the county government.
It should not have been.
Yes.
So let me just read 184. 184 says urban areas. 1. National legislation shall provide for the governance and management of urban areas and cities, and shall, in particular, A. establish criteria for classifying areas as urban areas and cities. B. establish the principles of governance and management of urban areas and cities. And C. provide for participation by residents in the governance of urban areas and cities.
What this means is that it's not delegated legislation. These powers aren't provided for under bylaws. It stays as a national function. That's all it means. It's not suggesting that it's to do with legislating. It's not suggesting that national government shall run.
It's basically saying that
urban areas.
That you, Machakos, you can't call yourselves a city. You can't go to the county assembly and basically decide, okay, so let's pass. We are going to be a city. This shall be done by the national government. But coming back to the issue that we're discussing, I think he's saying, jumping off of that, then Nairobi should not have been. Well, we are seeing that's not exactly it. But back to the conversation of what's the importance of having like a capital territory.
Also, I think it's a capital city's responsibility. A city like Nairobi, we need to attract investment. And when we have electioneering and we have that instability, that can actually put off investors. And furthermore, when we have populist agendas, it can put off investors. If an investor was watching buildings being torn down, for instance, and he knows that perhaps he could bring his money in, and instead of his investment falling into the ambit of the law, it falls into the sort of roadside decrees of an individual. It can actually be off-putting to potential investors. It's important to consider that. And potential investors are what we need as a city to develop and grow.
However, we can still have a national government doing all those things.
No, not with a democratic government that we have, with the structures set up, the legal structures. This is what I was arguing about, the difference between populist and a bad government. You would rather the bad government because it's structured within law. We haven't been able to legislate.
For example, you're talking about like the demolitions. The demolitions that have happened in Nairobi in the last year were coordinated by both the national government.
No, I don't want to focus on those. I was just giving an example that is visible. No, I was giving an example that is visible, that a populist agenda or a populist leader would do and air and get a lot of media attention
especially when they're working in counter purposes with the national government.
This is the argument as it is, and this is how it needs to be framed. You have a populist agenda, or you have a populist leader, and then you have a leader. For argument's sake, we're going to say a leader that is structured within institutions.
Structured.
Yes, there's institutions, powerful institutions now, strong institutions to uphold democracy. Yes, but we haven't been able to counter. We haven't been able to counter the negative effects of populism, and we can't, because democracy allows us to choose populism, but it has its negative effects because it can, a populist leader will put into play. We've seen it. Policies, not even policies, one day beneficial things for people, which excite people.
Jerry, please carry on with that argument that you had before, because look. Fine. You had an argument that was making sense. Please carry on with it.
All my arguments make sense.
This populism one is really stretched, but carry on. Yes.
What I'm asking is, which is better or worse? A populist leader with no controls, measures, regulations, can do what he wants, or a government which can be corrupt but is overlooked by institutions and other arms of government, so that you have somebody to turn to in case there's a problem. With populist policies, you can't go against them no matter what you think. In fact, this is where I say the electorate doesn't know what is good for them. Because they go for these populist agendas because they seem initially enticing.
We are being subjected
She's conditioning
No,
us.
this is intellectual tyranny. She, yes. She's bringing forth an argument that actually sounds like it makes sense, and it does.
The argument makes sense.
Because
where is
the governorship isn't based in utopia. It has very clear structures, very clear guidelines, because it is a government.
Even if somebody was elected, voted in because they were popular, they're still guided by the very framework of very tenets of government. They're still guided by that.
And they're not the final word when it comes to the laws of the country. They are not. The law is just the law.
And we see that playing out even now with what we see with governors being able to be brought to book.
For me, where you're losing Minjeri.
I can draw parallels with what I'm trying to suggest.
Yes.
From the debate we're having about whether you can legislate for morals. And you can't. Similarly, you can't legislate for these populist agendas. You can't legislate against them. You can't introduce structures to protect yourself against them. They're just a consequence, an unintended consequence of democracy.
You seem to be
so would you choose that?
Populism can only happen in the county and not at the national level. Well, a country can also have a populist president.
That's something good to throw into the works, absolutely. But I think the structures at national level are strong enough, the checks and balances are strong enough to ensure that the presidency is kept in check. I don't feel in a county like Nairobi we have had that. People can sack their deputies, the president can't sack his deputy. It comes with a lot of other strings attached, whether it's because of tribal allegiances and so on. In Nairobi, you don't have that. We've seen the tyranny of people.
Actually, a governor cannot sack their deputy. A deputy can resign.
Right.
A governor cannot.
He can be pushed. Okay. Good point.
It's the same way.
Yeah.
But the point is Nairobi, importance of Nairobi. Compare Nairobi to the other 46 counties, and the position that Nairobi enjoys. And I've seen the arguments here also are saying that you're denying the people of Nairobi the chance to enjoy the evolution just like the rest of the country. And also the argument that even Ndu actually went with and said Abuja was specifically created, right, and made the capital, the administrative capital of the country. So maybe the same thing that those who are the naysayers are saying, if you want to do that, go and create a new administrative capital and manage it as the national government.
It was interesting that some of the things they took into consideration when they were setting up this capital territory, interestingly enough, is that they looked at this area where they had a variety of individuals who already resided. You had a mix and melt from different parts of the country already residing in this area. So it's not as if it was bare, barren land and there was nothing happening.
But it wasn't a town, it wasn't a city, it wasn't a capital.
It was not anything, really.
It was
upgraded. But they looked critically and said, you know what, here we are, and we have a situation whereby it's not going to be polarized in the sense that we have dominance of one particular tribe living here or less of the other. It was taken into consideration that there was a balance of ethnicities around, and they said here is where we can set something up where we will not have these issues that people will bring up and say, how come you chose that area where certain people were living? There was actually a balance of representation of the country. And that is now when they took the decision to build this territory in that particular area, build a city out of what they already had been offered with who was residing in that area.
So maybe the conversation that I want to open up the phone lines, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Also, our social media handles are open. We are streaming live on Facebook on Spice FM KE. You can actually post your comment in a conversation there. And Spice FM KE on Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. What do you think? Should we scrap the Nairobi City County government?
I just want to counter a point that you made there earlier about whether we would be denying or infringing on Nairobians' democratic rights.
Yeah.
And at the risk of sounding flippant, I know some of my assertions, and it's for the sake of discussion and opening up the discourse.
And for being flippant at the same time. Carry on.
At the risk of sounding flippant, and let's be pragmatic here, Nairobi isn't really home for many people, so to speak. A lot of people have their shags and they can go and vote there, and you find that's where they place most importance. And I'm being purely pragmatic here. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me. They don't have that heart connection to Nairobi. Yes, there's people who live here, but in terms of voting, they have the right to vote in the shags constituency.
They have options.
They have come to Nairobi. Yes, they have options.
Out of the 4 million
So they have
people
come
in
to Nairobi more for opportunities. And if a national government can create a more conducive environment for these opportunities to be realized, then why not?
Why can't the county government do the same thing?
They are not. They are failing because we're voting in populists.
We were discussing
failures
failures earlier on, remember? Remember? Okay. Open up the phone lines.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. And so we'd like to have the conversation with you as well. On Facebook, Spice FM KE. On Twitter, Spice FM KE. www.spicefm.co.ke. Should Nairobi be scrapped as a county and just be positioned under the national government? Should Nairobi be scrapped? So let's have 46 counties. Let's forget about having 47 counties. Make Nairobi part of the national government under a ministry, whatever you want to call that ministry. Nairobi Metropolitan, Nairobi City County Ministry, Nairobi Capital City Ministry, Nairobi whatever.
NBI.
NBI. We can even still call it 047.
I was thinking
Ministry 047.
As we're talking, Eric, why don't we look at countries that have a federal system in the world, anecdotally speaking, of course, and look at how it is they've managed this. Look at countries that have a long history of democracy. They've had a capital city, at the same time they have the state within the same thing. How have they managed it? Because, you see, the suggestion that is being made may even be good. But the moment it is politicized, it will not sound good.
What are the political risks?
Break some eggs to make. You've got to break some shells to make scrambled eggs. It will initially be politicized, and with a view to depoliticizing Nairobi in the first
we don't
instance.
even have the eggs yet. the chicken isn't even available.
Right here.
We have a chick.
We're creating them.
We have a chick, not a chicken. So eggs. We're talking. If we discuss eggs, that's a premature discussion.
That will come with the BBI.
It will come with the BBI. Yes.
So this has been proposed, actually. It was proposed, one of the issues that had been proposed to the BBI when they were going around the country collecting views from the people. I don't know whether it had been discussed on March 8th when the two gentlemen met in Harambee House and agreed to have a BBI. Because whether they had actually agreed. So this is what we're going to take to the people, and then we shall tell them to give us their views on it, and we shall put it together into a bill. But then if it comes to you in a bill, would you vote yes or no, CT?
You see, the thing is, you're asking me to discuss the contents of a bill.
No, I'm saying, not that bill. Call it the Situation Room bill, which says scrap Nairobi as
No, I
as
wouldn't
a city.
vote for it.
Why not?
For the simple reason that this particular one works fine. I do not see how the national government coming in will improve anything. I actually don't see it.
Remember when you talked about the days of John Gakuo?
Yes.
And Philip Kisia?
Yes.
As county clerks?
Yes.
Working under a minister and a mayor?
Yes.
Don't you reminisce those good old days?
But my friend, this was a city within a province. Please remember, Nairobi was a province. And there was a city. Yes, and then we had 2 cities, and then we had 3 cities, and they were all within provinces. See, that was the structure then. So we now have a city within a county. We have 3 cities within 3 counties. So I'm asking, this is a situation we've had. What is this thing that requires us to drastically change what we have to something new that we don't even fully understand?
Maybe to talk about, to avoid the kind of scenario that we are likely to have, and maybe we can even expand that conversation into that. Expand the conversation into, we don't have a deputy governor right now in Nairobi. We don't have a county secretary right now in Nairobi. We do not have really a substantive speaker, because the speaker who's been there was kicked out by the county assembly, went to court, and the county assembly said, no, the court said, reinstate the speaker. Many issues. So we've got issues in the capital city. And is that a good outlook of the country to the world?
That's the outcome of democracy, my friend.
It is 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is Spice FM.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. grab your copy and be aboard the Fun Wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right.
Traffic.
Taking a look at Mombasa Road, we know that there was a trailer that, turned in the opposite direction, but now we know the real reason why there's a lot of traffic on Mombasa Road today, and there's a road closure. The Kenya Airports Authority is notifying the public that the private earth road currently running parallel to the railway line at the southmost end of JKIA will be closed from today, 10th September. The private road was open for use following a request by the Kenya Railways during the construction of the standard gauge railway. The construction of this section is complete and the road is no longer necessary. So that is what is happening now, and that's why we have the influx of traffic on the road. Apart from that, we don't see any other issues outside of the normal, and if you do let us know on 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
26 minutes to the top of the hour. You are in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, and we've opened up the phone line 0719 012 600. I've got Ruben Kigame on the line. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, Eric. How are you guys doing?
We're very well, thanks.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I just thought to jump in on one or two things. Very interesting conversation this morning. The first thing is, I don't know how we can distinguish anything in Kenya or in Kenya on the basis of populist or anything else, because everything is populist.
Things can be packaged.
And devolution itself is actually set on a populist agenda. And if you're going to look at any change, it would have to start at the national level. By the time we're having a situation with a Nairobi governor who can do without a deputy and all that, it's because that's how we seem to have chosen to do politics. And we like to devolve everything. We'd like to, in fact, if we had a chance to devolve individual counties, we might as well do it, because we like bloated stuff. We create positions for people because somehow we have this feeling that unless everybody is on board, then nothing moves. And so you have very wonderful technocrats in Nairobi. I mean, listening to you guys this morning, any of you could make a very good leader of Nairobi.
Thank you.
Oh, I thank you very much.
I mean, I'm serious. I'm very serious. Because what you need in Nairobi, like one of you said, is a situation where you have someone who really understands not just the economics, but really global politics. Yes. So that, maybe the situation of having like a mayor it would still be a good idea.
To represent us on an international platform.
Yes, and one who can discourse intelligently across the world. You can go to New York or anywhere else and represent, a cosmopolitan representation of a country like Kenya. Now, I was just thinking about Singapore, for example. If you go into Singapore, you bet, even if you pulled out a newspaper or whatever it is, hardly will you find bickering and name calling and all this political jargon. It's really discussion about development, about policy, about, and so I think it's possible to get to such a point if we wanted to as a country, but as long as we have, every county is politicized, it's all politics through and through, and very little policy, and that's why you can, all of you intelligent people in Nairobi live with all that populist agenda. You don't. I guess that's who we are as a people. But I think we can get out of that.
Let me ask you a direct one, Ruben.
Yeah.
Would you vote yes or no?
For what?
For the not the dissolution, actually, the scrapping of Nairobi as a county.
I would vote a yes. Don't need it. Too many overlaps.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for your call this morning. Where are you calling from?
From Eldoret. I'm a country boy.
Asante sana, country boy, 96.7 in Eldoret. Have a good day.
I enjoy your conversations.
Oh,
Brilliant.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Have a good day. Jerry, yes or no?
Mine would definitely be a yes. First of all, I mentioned it would depoliticize Nairobi, which is a very important hub in the region, and of course would benefit us greatly if there was none of the politics that we see. Also, we would get away from the populist initiatives that we see. Somebody gave a very good example. So, for instance, Sonko will go for voters. And the masses, and will create policies that encourage, let's say, borders to do XYZ, which might not be good for Nairobi as a whole in the long run. Also, that there would be no elections every few years could keep the county a lot more stable. But it's also important to consider the fact that borrowing, which we do on a national level, I think countries or national government would have a much better credit rating than a local government. So you'll find in terms of borrowing for projects and things, it puts Nairobi in good stead. Those amongst a few other things, but primarily to depoliticize the governance of such an important city.
0719-012-600. Also, the conversation is on Facebook, Spice FM KE. We are live streaming on Facebook, and we're also live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE. I've got Roderick on the line. Good morning, Roderick.
Morning, Latif.
The Situation Room, the awesome foursome is here with us. Say good morning to all of them.
Morning.
Morning, all of you.
Good morning.
Nasikia nyinyi ni viongozi. Okay, now the thing is this, Nairobi, it should be scrapped, yes, as a county government. But I have one issue. Will there be any change? I don't think so.
you.
Why? We have cartels in everything. Cartels in water, cartels in garbage collection, everything. So, are we scrapping it to make a difference, or just scrapping it just to for politics purposes, or scrapping it for what? Because we're just an important hub.
But you've said yes, it's okay to scrap it. So why would you?
Okay. Yes, I'm on both
the wage
bill.
But surely can the man have two conflicting ideas?
But look here, yes, it should be scrapped, huh?
Yeah.
But I have an issue. But I have an issue with this. Even if it's scrapped, things will just be the same. If the cartels are still there.
So work on the
cartels.
Actually, the cartels
have been worse. The cartels have been worse under this, what do you call it? Under this county regime, this county government system, devolution, than they were in the past. They were hiding. Saizi they just plain sight, unajua. You want to ogopi? Grabbing lands all over and doing very funny things all over.
Do you think the national government would have more impetus to actually fight these cartels as opposed to the local elected leadership? Because you see, if you talk about the Nairobi County government, these are people who have campaigned in Nairobi, they've sought votes in Nairobi, they've sought political support, of course, from people who have got influence in the city. So therefore, they feel directly owed to the people more than nationally elected leadership.
What I think, and this is my personal opinion, is that these cartels have positioned themselves in a way that they look for a strong contender who is coming into office, and they campaign for that guy, fund his campaign and all that, for kickbacks and also to look the other way, you see. And for them to gain access to the national government, I think it will be a bit difficult. For it is brought to the national government under the if Nairobi County government is brought under the national government, it will be maybe a bit difficult, and probably a good leader who will have a good political will, who atakuwa na political will come and rain down on them. But having these guys here, you want to be the next governor, and provided you can do what the cartels they want, my friend, you will just go through.
Roderick,
and you'll do what they want.
How would you respond to the people who would say that removing devolution from Nairobi, you're actually denying the people of Nairobi that chance to enjoy the benefits and the fruits of this sweet fruit called devolution?
You know, the good thing is that Nairobi money is there. Actually, devolution came as a way that to bring money to the county government, whereby to bring resources and all that. I think Nairobi is self-sustaining. We don't really require devolution. And to me, that's my opinion, than other counties or other places all over, you see. But I think the only way is that for us is to just irudisho kwa county government and
irudisho kwa national government.
Political will, national government, and have a leader that will rain down on these cartels. Because even if we return it to the national government and we still have cartels roaming and get access even to the top office of this land, we'll have a problem. We'll have a problem.
Okay.
It's all about political will, integrity, just do what doing is right, which we lack as a people.
But you make an interesting point when you say if it's nationalized again, it might be harder for the cartels to gain access. There might be fewer cartels and so on. So that was a very good point in terms of fighting the cartels. It might be easier.
Yeah, besides, you know, you are criticizing the governor, you never access. The governor, you can just go. He has the clout and all that. Just fund that guy to look the other way, and that's what is happening. It's something that's what is happening.
Roderick, are you saying the preponderance of cartels is limited to counties only and not the national government?
Okay, I think the ones that who play at these county levels are smaller fishes. There are big fishes that play at that level. That also should be dealt with.
So essentially what you'll have done, according to your argument, is moved the big fish from where they were to yet a new entity.
To a new pond.
Yes. Where they can cause the chaos they were causing in other entities.
Wow.
It's a work in progress. We'll get there in
the end.
It's
a work in progress. It's just a work in progress. Okay, we are just trying to look at ideas.
And how best.
At least we're having the conversations.
We're having the conversation. I think one thing
having this conversation actually is very important. It's very good. No one has ever come up with such a conversation, and people talk. People see. Tuache kuwa kwa autopilot all the time. Just on autopilot. Mtu ameiba, you're okay, sawa. Mwingine anataiba kesho, sawa. Ameshikwa, amewachiliwa, sawa. You know.
Roderick, thank you very much for your conversation this morning and contribution. Asante sana. Have a good day.
Good. Thanks, man.
I've got Titus from Eldoret. Titus, good morning. Titus, you're on air, actually. Titus, good morning. He's Titus Owiti from Eldoret. Maybe he stepped away from the phone just for a bit. So you wanted to say something, before I...
Well, I'm looking, if we look at it from on a broader level, what tends to happen, especially, I mean, speaking from experience on what I know and what I see to be having been the case. When CT asked the question about, can we look at where it seems to have worked or where it has done and what worked about it? I think at some point when you elevate a particular territory and then that is under the purview of the national government, there are things that I wouldn't want to say automatically, but somehow systemically take a different face. You kind of give a facelift to the particular territory that we're talking about. And if we want to look at it from a global level, we should want to have cities that contribute and also compete on this global level. That means also then wanting to put in leaders or at least custodians of these particular territories at a place where they will be able to communicate the needs or the aspirations of said territory on this global level. We cannot do that if that is what we aspire to. We cannot do that with the current state.
Let's break this down. We're sugarcoating this. Let's break it down.
at Nairobi as an example, if you look at Nairobi as an example, and going
are we saying Sonko cannot speak on a global platform? Is that what you're getting at?
He can speak on a global platform.
Connect? Let Titus
what would be withdrawn from what he says is a totally different kettle of fish.
Pause.
Can I say this again? Titus is back. Titus, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Sorry, I went mute on you. Yeah, I would like also to contribute in the conversation. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to take a bit of a different approach to it. The difference is this. Our constitution is based on devolution. It's devolution based.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So by us delisting Nairobi as one of the counties, then we will be defeating. We will be like we are still contributing towards centralizing of our services in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it works towards like we are still yearning towards getting back to the old constitutional order. Nairobi still remains the Nairobi that everybody should always be looking towards going towards Nairobi so that they can get better opportunities. What about a different direction whereby, what if the national government can decentralize its operations? A different whereby, I'm talking about a situation whereby if we are able to demarcate the different towns within the country and we identify that this town, maybe say Mombasa is good in terms of tourism, it becomes a tourist hub. So all the operations of the national government pertaining to tourism should be done at the coast.
Mm-hmm.
If it is an issue of maybe say like Nairobi becomes maybe majorly the administrative hub, and we are able to run all those functions towards the counties so that we can have that trickle effect towards the
jobs
other regions within the country.
So the Ministry of Tourism goes to the coast.
Yes, the headquarters for Ministry of Tourism. If you have anything to do with maybe Ministry of Tourism, go to the coast maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If maybe it's something to do with agriculture, we think either if it is Eldoret or Nakuru, whichever becomes the headquarters for agriculture, then the national government models that town to be the headquarters for that operations. If it is an issue of education, we identify another town yet again, we give it that kind of approach, whereby at the end of the day, the whole country is growing wholesomely because the resources are available. No longer will we have the crunch whereby everybody is rushing to Nairobi so that they are able to find opportunities. But the opportunities, the same, being strengthened by the county governments, will be within the roots.
But I thought devolution was supposed to do that.
That's what
Yes, devolution is supposed to do that. But now we have a case whereby we are busy replicating. You have a national government dealing with agriculture, you come to the grassroots, also the county government has got its own agricultural docket. You have the national government dealing with education, come to the grassroots also doing the same thing.
And what's wrong with that?
There's policy and there's implementation.
Yes.
No, I think what he's saying makes sense, and it helps with the distribution of jobs and wealth as well, because what he's suggesting is instead of having the Ministry of Finance here, the Ministry of Tourism in Nairobi, everything in Nairobi, and I think he means both physically and administratively, why do we not send the Ministry of Tourism to Mombasa and work off there?
So we scrap the concept of a capital city and the seat of government.
No. The capital city can be there. I mean, you have it in the UK. So you have immigration in Glasgow.
Then what do you have?
You have it in the UK. You have immigration in Glasgow primarily to create jobs in Glasgow. You have the DVLA, which is the driving people, the equivalent of maybe NTSA. You have them in Liverpool. You have somebody else in Durham. You do have that, but
so they're not in London.
No, they're not in London.
And how many ministries are in London?
No. These are not necessarily ministries. The government,
the departments.
The departments. So I can see what he's saying, especially when it comes to redistribution of wealth and jobs from a county perspective. So it goes hand in hand, and it's not at loggerheads with devolution. Devolution still works to decentralize power, per se. What he's suggesting, I think, is the decentralization now of administrative functions
of the national government.
Yeah.
Is that
right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly my thought. Like we decentralize instead of continuously, because if we are to maybe to get Nairobi off the roll of the counties, then it means that still we are strengthening the position of a centralized government by creating now an autonomy.
Just because of having one territory, really.
Yes.
Yes, the aspect of our creating an autonomy, it comes with also territory.
Mhm.
When we create that, then we are strengthening the position of our central government, something that goes against the spirit of our 2010 constitution.
Absolutely, and the intentions of the drafters. Makes a lot of sense.
Titus, thank you very much for your contribution this morning from Eldoret.
Thank you, welcome.
Have a good day.
You too.
The conversation continues 0719-012-600. I'd like to repeat that 0719-012-600 as we come to the conclusion of this particular conversation. So I see you guys have all been bought by what Titus has said. So yes, let's decentralize the national government, but that hasn't got anything to do with saying that, if you've got the capital as identified as a capital, and you're saying that this is the economic hub. It's the importance of Nairobi. We're not even actually talking about the functions that Nairobi is. We need to have the national government running Nairobi so that it's able to have more space. No, it's not about space. It's about the importance that the Nairobi, as a capital of the country, is given. So it's a national. It's
a very interesting idea.
It's like saying Nairobi is a national treasure.
No, that idea of Titus
owned by the whole country.
It's actually a very interesting idea. It's a really interesting idea because it may seem new. From what Njeri said, it isn't entirely new, but you do have countries that have an economic hub. That's one city.
Yep.
It's considered to be where commerce happens.
Like Nigeria, Lagos is the economic capital of Nigeria, but Abuja is the political capital of the country.
The others who even have an industrial hub. It's some other city.
Yeah.
So why not this particular construct?
It's okay. You see, like in Nigeria, what you're talking about, we still have administrative hub, Abuja. The economic hub,
Lagos.
Lagos.
Dar es Salaam.
I was going to give. It's because the next example I was going to give is Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and Dodoma. It's the same, economic hub, administrative hub. So we can have that. Yes, we can create special economic zones. We can actually create an economic hub. We can create a tourism hub and whatever. But Nairobi is still an economic hub. So who should run this economic hub?
I would like to still look at it as an option for which a country can be represented on a global scale, on a global level, so that you can basically take your country out there using your capital territory, as it were, or your capital city to really, contribute, like I said, or compete. Sell the country. Brand Kenya, using Nairobi specifically for that. But, right now with the way it is, maybe that couldn't be done per se.
Why not?
Because is it done so far? Because we still have, as opposed to taking it from a national,
maybe not done enough,
not using it from a national responsibility, but using it only from a county
Kenya
level.
Yeah, but you see, like when you're hosting international events, so yeah, you've got to consider that you're hosting an international event in Nairobi. You've got to work closely with the government of Nairobi. Now, what Njeri also actually mentioned at some point is if you have Nairobi being run by a certain governor and a certain government that's not really working with the national government, then you've got clashes and conflicts all the time. So during the period of that government, you've got the county government clashing and conflicting with the national government. They don't see eye to eye. What happens? So you're bringing in an international UNCTAD conference or TICAD conference, or you're bringing whatever UN conference to come and happen in Nairobi. You're bringing in a lot of conversations, and you want to position Nairobi as the maize capital of Africa. You want to position Nairobi as the place to go. And then the local administration is working at counter purposes. These are the issues, man.
I am not in disagreement. It's a new idea. And like with all new ideas, it requires thought.
Taste it, roll it around in your mouth a little bit, give it some
chew.
Smoke it a little bit.
Ingests, right? So it's 4 minutes to the top of the hour. I'd like us to go around with a round of our closing remarks on the three topics that we had this morning. Who goes first?
Okay. My position in this matter is clear. I haven't changed my position. Blame should rest where it should, and those responsible should pay the designated cost, the legally designated cost for their responsibility or irresponsibility thereof. I'm looking at you, Njeri.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure what subject you're on about.
Tough.
That the guy. The one that you were saying, that government and the ministers who have failed in their duty as ministers.
Right. Okay.
So you're
because
saying
they could have applied to
anyone,
this,
even this particular one.
topic.
Yes, it could.
Let's blame county or national. It could have applied to that.
Yes.
With regards to CT's conversation today, I think I made it quite clear that no matter how thin you slice it, there's always two coins, and it's important that you put out the full picture. It's very easy to come here and blanket criticize the government, and it's an easy wave to ride, but it's also very important that we remember what the government has actually done. If we focus on certain ministries, yes, we can say there's been a few failures, agriculture and so on, but if you focus on energy, infrastructure, education, you can see Kenya is growing. If you focus on the 3 pillars of development, you can see development under social pillar, you can see development under the economic
why do you
pillar.
insist on rephrasing the things I said? I focused on ministries, and then you say government. I said ministries.
They are part. They are part
this
of
company
government.
is okay, but
They
there
are
are certain departments, there are certain managers in the
Yes.
company who are failing
Yes.
the company.
And they must be called out.
But if we're just going to talk about the failings and the failures, then
those
it
who fail
paints
need
the
to be
company
identified.
overall as quite the failure.
Are you saying that we
so
should not
to
do any
speak.
performance contracting?
But I want to end on the
scorecarding.
Yes.
I want to end on the Sonko issue in
Right.
terms of returning Nairobi to become a ministry, and why I think it's important. Of course, Kenya is fast becoming on top of the global watch list for companies. Multinationals are looking to come here. They've realized they can't operate from one sub-Saharan city, which is South Africa had all the multinationals. So it's an opportunity to attract, I'm talking about car manufacturers, I'm talking about multinationals that will come and create serious jobs for the economy and really grow Kenya. Now, we need a level of stability that electioneering does not lend itself to for Nairobi. The perpetual electioneering, politicking, the 5 years changing, it creates an instability that can actually put off multinationals. And if other countries are developing, such as Ethiopia, which is doing very well with its infrastructure, it can actually overtake us where multinationals start to prefer them. So I'm thinking from a nationalist point of view when I talk about this. Also, the idea that we can borrow more money to build Nairobi and to expand Nairobi if it's under the national government. National governments are trusted. I don't know what the lending rules are to counties. I don't know if they're allowed to borrow, but I can reassure you that, whether it's the World Bank or the Chinese, whoever's lending money for development, which we need to borrow for development, would trust national government over local government. So those are my two main reasons. Of course, there's my personalized reason, like I don't like populist politics and so on, but I think those are strong enough to put an argument forward.
Well, it still remains that we have our eyes on having been conditioned very, very, frequently by what we see, and the underbelly of what is really going on in this country, for which we need to make decisions about, is not being brought to the fore. Unfortunately, the Fourth Estate is not making its mark as solidly as it should by sharing and educating and informing the population on what the real issues are, and we really need to have the conversation to make sure that we get in line.
Well, cut the media some slack, number one. Number two, yes, ministers who don't perform, fire them and stop keeping them for political expediency. Number three, scrap Nairobi City County and give it to the national government. It's 10 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room right here on Spice FM. We'll be here again with you tomorrow morning in Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, CT Muga, and I'm Eric Latif. From now until 7 o'clock, Sugar and Spice and everything nice, uninterrupted music, and then 7 to 10, you'll have the adults in the room. Kisiangani, Eric, and the Duchess of Ikolomani. Have a good morning.
Okay.